At the Fan Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
Well. There you are. Welcome into the sports bar. Danger and Battaglia. We are so back and glad you're with us at 95.7 FM, AM 950. The Fan Rochester in the free-to-download Odyssey app, iHeartRadio app, and also TuneIn Radio. You can listen to us on any of those platforms. You can watch the sports bar on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, where we stream live every afternoon. I am Mike Danger, and over there, that's Gene Battaglia.
Who are you?
I know the savage tan
Yeah.
makes it look like I'm a different person. This is how I look this time of year, Gino. The olive glow of my half Spaniard nationality comes through.
You know, your daughter's words were in my head over vacation.
Oh, this is not good.
No, because there I am, end of vacation, and where I get to sit on the beach, and I'm looking at off over the sound, there's the fireworks I can see from Nantucket, and this direction, that way, and then the fireworks go out, and then your daughter's words, summer is over. Summer is over when the last firework goes out. Here we are.
The take that my daughter, who doesn't hate summer, she just doesn't like warm temperatures. She's a comfort person. She wants comfort-controlled air conditioning. She don't want to be outside on days like yesterday. So, yes, she's the person who will gladly wish away summer and does so when the last firework goes out on 4th of July. Well, that's it for summer. Summer was fun. Fun while it lasted. Gone. We're not wishing away summer.
No
chance.
Not at all.
However, 4th of July does turn the page on a couple of things I feel like in our mental sports calendar. Have you done your fantasy football research,
Of
Gino?
course.
Because since we last spoke in our modest little Radio Geeks office league, Gino pulled the number one overall pick in this year's draft.
Which I would highly encourage anybody to investigate the Superflex League, because the Superflex League, what that does is it actually puts the important, puts it on the quarterback. And kind of hard to pass up Josh Allen.
There it is. There's the Bills tax on display. But your point being, he is worthy of being the number one overall quarterback in your fantasy draft.
In the Superflex League.
Mm-hmm.
No question about it. So, no, that's not me being a homer. Yeah, we did have Michael Florio as one of our guests. I broke the seal without you, bud.
Oh, that's fine. That's totally fine. I'm picking 9th in our league, which, yeah, I guess I don't feel too bad about that. But we're going to start now because of the 4th of July. It feels like the logical place where you start to think about football just a little bit more, even though there's no football going on and everybody's out and you're hoping that they stay out of trouble. We're just over 2 weeks away from training camp.
Well, if you need a visual for training camp, you're on 490, look over at the Fisher campus. They've already got everything up, Danger, the hospitality tents, everything already going into place 2 weeks in advance. Now, the dates that they're open to the public, mind you, the rookies are going to be out there closed to the public a little before, so they probably want to get the work done in ahead of time. So you and I both fired up for camp. We're going to be out there every day beginning on the 23rd.
How many shows?
9.
It's like the Bills
9 times.
listen to the sports bar. Excited for our 9 episodes from St. John Fisher University and Buffalo Bills training camp. We'll see what the Bills have in store for us. And I've already gotten the requests. Look, if I could give everybody free tickets to everything all the time, I would. I'm a generous person. I don't have tickets to training camp. You don't have tickets to training camp.
I don't.
We don't get tickets to training camp. The tickets are free, but everybody knows the challenges now of getting tickets to training camp, even though they're free. Do you remember when you could easily get tickets to Buffalo Bills training camp?
You didn't even need tickets, Danger. If
Just
it was
show up.
if it was a day practice, just go. I'm not kidding. It was only for the finger quote night practices. And in the night practices, well, they would put everybody in Grounding Stadium and have more. That's also part of this too. If they actually put a grass field at Grounding Stadium and worked out there, and then you had everybody sitting, what is that seat? If you have everybody around there, that would be like $5,000 you could put in there. Yeah, it's a numbers thing. And they really don't want you to go and then be 10 in deep and not enjoy it. So that's why they don't oversell it.
Yeah, this is Sean McDermott's Buffalo Bills training camp. It's been this way for as long as he's been here. He doesn't use the turf field. He goes to the natural grass, and then he goes to that backfield and the back practice field where you don't really have fan access over there. You can't really see what's going on. And I remember there was one year where a lot of work was being done in that backfield, and people that did go to training camp were upset. Can't even see him practice. Don't even know what's going on because apparently the field wasn't to his standards or his liking.
Yeah, and since that point, the Policini, that is immaculate what they use there for the track and field. I mean, it like when they are not on the field, they are working on that constantly. It's the best looking yard in Rochester.
No question about it.
Yeah.
No question about it. So we're just over 2 weeks away from Buffalo Bills training camp. We are not wishing summer away, but we know that there are some mental pages that get flipped in your calendar, your sports calendar. Your NBA season is done since I last spoke with you, Gino. The NHL season came to a conclusion since I was last in the sports bar.
Wow, you haven't been here. What was your last show? The 12th?
Yeah, June 12th. So a lot has happened. We could get caught up on a lot of it. Well, today we're going to kind of focus on some of what's been going on with our Buffalo Sabres. Steve Cordianos, the draft analyst, will be stopping by at 4:25.
Look, the Sabres had a draft. Some of these guys will be in Rochester. I couldn't tell you anything about it. That's why we invited Steven. Like, who's ticketed here? Who might actually help the Sabres? How did the Sabres do overall? I've read some of the reviews, Danger, and it doesn't seem that great for the Sabres, not just the draft, but kind of overall. We'll talk to Steve Cordianos, our friend, coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. He's kind of like he's the Mel Kiper of when it comes to NHL draft info, and he's kind enough to give us a few minutes in 4 o'clock.
He knows his stuff. Joe Yerdon from the Bleacher Report and Noted Hockey will be stopping by as well later on this hour at 3:25.
So JJ Peterka is gone. He's in not in Colorado. Getting confused there. The Mammoth,
Yeah.
Utah. But you still have Bo Byram, and maybe he's not going to get moved. Who's playing center for this team next year? Anybody have any idea? Look, we'll get Joe's take on what has happened. Could there be more movement? But things kind of settling down a little bit when it comes to offseason movement. Joe Yerdon, the Bleacher Report, Noted Hockey, coming up at the bottom of this hour.
We have free tickets to give away this afternoon to see Adam Sandler when he comes to KeyBank Center in Buffalo on September 21st. We'll give those away at some point this afternoon as well, so make sure you're paying close attention and get ready to dial in for your chance to win free tickets to see Adam Sandler. You can join us anytime at 866-4FAN 585-866-4326.
So part of today is like, okay, what did we miss? And maybe you've been on vacation, and what did you miss? Danger one storyline, and I put it in the not surprising category, but just the way this is getting rolled out is just very clunky. So we had this release by the Amherst, and this was the Monday before the 4th, whatever it was. It was late June. And in this release said, hey, we've come to a 5-year agreement with the new arena manager. And that's great. We didn't expect anything less, right? For those who weren't following, the Amherst are no longer running the arena themselves. This is going back to the way it was circa 2016, 2017. They brought in a new company, the city of Rochester did, called VenueWorks.
Got it.
So VenueWorks, the Amherst have a 5-year deal. But then, wait a second. What about the Nighthawks? Just a little bit after that, we get the statement from Pete Guelli that says, as of June 30th, the Nighthawks will no longer be operated by Mr. Pegula and the outfit, that it will be turned over to the league.
Okay.
And that's where we are. Oh, and then the statements, we would love nothing more to, see Rochester lacrosse thrive and blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. But there's no indication whatsoever that there is going to be a new local owner.
Do you remember the day that they announced that they were taking over, that the Pagulas were taking over control of the arena and also of the Rochester Nighthawks? Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Terry Pagula mention it was like, we would love to do this? It was like a charity thing.
He called it a donation?
Yeah, right.
This charitable donation, which he looked at the books and thought, I'm going to lose money on this.
Right. It's even from the moment he announced it, I think he viewed it as, I know I'm going to lose money on this, but I'm happy to do it for, and Kim was still a part of this as well for the community of Rochester. Terry really did it for the community of Rochester. And now it's a matter of, all right, who, if anybody within our community or with ties to Rochester, will step up and claim ownership of the Nighthawks. With the league now holding the Nighthawks, is there somebody willing to keep this team in Rochester?
Well, my read on it, Danger, is that if they had an owner, okay, you would need that owner going out and getting sponsors and selling tickets and doing all those sort of things. We talked to one prominent Nighthawks sponsor off the record, because this individual said, look, I'll tell you whatever you want to know, but just don't drag me into this. Okay, fair enough. Right before the 4th, they hadn't even been reached out to yet. So to me, that tells you everything you would want to know. My read on this is it's either, one, they're going to fold this team like they did to a team down in Dallas, and this players union really doesn't have much to stand on. There will be a dispersal draft. Or, hey, I'm Terry Pagula. I don't want the bad PR of selling a team that's going to move it to Charlotte or St. Louis or any of these other rumored cities. Let's give this a half minute. Let's let the league, move the team, and then we'll quietly, collect the check on this.
That's right. I think this is the right clip. This is Terry Pagula when he kept the Nighthawks in Rochester.
It will have the Nighthawks legacy, and we're very proud to contribute again to the Western New York and the Rochester community by keeping the team here.
Contribute. So as a
No, he at some point said charitable donation. I mean, you didn't misremember that.
Right. Okay. So it was also kind of always wonky knowing that he had the Bandits and the Nighthawks, right? Like, there is such a thing as rivalry, and we certainly have it with Buffalo in terms of the lacrosse league. I think that I think that it's going to be tight, man. I don't know. I'm not feeling great about it. I'm not feeling great about the prospects of the Rochester Nighthawks being run by the NLL next year. They're not going to do it. They're not going to.
No, they're not going to do it. They'll literally fold the team, dispersal draft. One of the clever tweets we got. Well, imagine the Bandits getting the first overall pick there in the dispersal draft.
Sure.
Like, Connor Fields would end up as a Bandit there. And actually, one of the regular callers, John, brought up a point. He's like, look what's going on. Terry Pagula right now needs money. He needs cash. They need to finish that stadium. And when you're running a business, everything is under review. So if we have this property in the Nighthawks that's losing money in Rochester, let's not lose any more money, shall we? Basically.
That's right. I know that people view guys like Terry Pagula, so he's a billionaire. He can afford it. What's the big deal? It's like, no, billionaires get to be billionaires by watching their finances like he's watching them. You don't want to take losses. You could take losses, but not for an extended amount of time. And also, when they say they don't have $1 billion just laying around, that's true. I mean, their money is tied up in equity. Their money is tied up in it's not like they have all kinds of cash to lose, especially when you're building a stadium. You need to pump in whatever you can pump in, which is why you have the heat for the PSLs and everything else. I mean, that's money that goes right back into the stadium. Don't get me wrong. He's going to be fine. Don't feel sympathy for Terry Pagula. Financially, there's nothing to worry about, obviously, but the loss of funds from having the Nighthawks as part of his portfolio over the years is probably enough. He's had enough. So So we hold our breath and hope that somehow it stays.
It stays. We're talking about people in jobs,
Yeah.
not everybody's going to be able to retain their job, and
Right.
it is a quality of life thing. If I can draw an analogy, Danger. So I just finished up this book I've been meaning to read. I always liked watching the Anthony Bourdain.
Ooh, Sports Bar Book Club?
Yeah.
You tell me what you read, and I'll tell you what I read.
Okay, so Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential.
All right.
So basically it's telling these secrets of this trade, and this is before he became like a TV guy. This is what springboarded his career. He wrote this tell-all book, and he broke down how many people get into the restaurant business that have no idea what they're doing. Just thinking that, and if you have no idea, and understanding that most of us would understand that what percentage of restaurants actually fail? Well, the analogy here is that anybody that wants to own a minor league team, and yes, the Nighthawks play at the top level, okay? So when I say minor league, as compared to the NBA, NHL, baseball, football, certainly, yes, it's minor league, okay? So going into that, how can you actually turn a profit? I'm sure there's smart business people in our town that looked at this and said, yeah, I can't do that. You'd have to have somebody going in and saying, hey, I'm doing this for my hometown. I think it's important that we put people in the seats on a Saturday
You're
night.
doing it expecting a loss initially and trying to figure out a way that you can actually turn it into something profitable long term. And it can't be a loss for every team in the league. I mean, there wouldn't be a league if every owner was losing money. So there's got to be a way, or it's going to fold. There's got to be a way for somebody locally who's got that kind of bread, who would, much like what Terry did. Mm-hmm. This is a charitable donation. I'm making a contribution for the community. It's important to the community. We don't want to see it go. We're willing to take on the ownership.
What book did you read?
I read 4.
4.
I read 4 different books.
Oh, I thought the name of the book was
No,
4.
I read 4 different books.
What?
Yeah.
I've never even known you to read a book.
Gene, where I was with no Wi-Fi, limited cell reception, nothing but time when I wasn't around family, when we weren't feeding ourselves like kings and just stuffing our faces or visiting monuments or going to parties or whatever. I read. Are you familiar with Tim Grover?
No.
Tim Grover is the trainer for Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and others. This
is the guy you talk about, the cleaner or whatever.
Yeah.
That guy. Right.
So
yep.
he has 2 books, one being Relentless, the follow-up being Winning. I finished Relentless front to back. I read most of it years ago, and I started it over again and read through the whole thing, and then I read through all of Winning. And then, on the recommendation of my good buddy Tony, I hope you're sitting down, West Sider, friend named Tony, Tony gave me, years ago, 2 Mike Lupica books that he's like, dude, you got to read these. They're just fun stories. They're just fun books. Bump and Run and Red Zone are the 2 books. Okay. And they're football-themed novels. One was, you know what I compare it to? Like, both of them are like, you remember the old HBO show growing up called First and 10?
Yes.
It was like reading First and 10 meets Get Shorty. It was like a little bit of gangster mentality and mob mentality mixed in with NFL. It was all fictional, but a couple of fun reads. 4 books.
Delta Burke.
Yes. Yeah, Delta Burke at the height of her powers. Well, that's not true. I think some would argue Designing Women was the height of Delta Burke's career, but before there was Designing Women, there was First and 10 on HBO with Delta Burke. And then then after Delta Burke, Shannon Tweed, who would go on to marry Gene Simmons of Kiss. There's your First and 10 from HBO. Maybe I watched it a little bit too much as a kid. Maybe it had a little bit too much influence on me as a kid.
You know what's funny? If anybody's like, did you talk to Danger while he was gone? The answer is yes, but it was kind of unexpected. Where all of a sudden, I can't share what Danger texted me, but it was something that came across his feed, and he sends that to me, and I look at my phone. I'm like, okay, it's the end of the day here. It's like 5 o'clock. like I'm picturing you somewhere in the mountains of Italy at 11 o'clock their time. Like, and I am bored. I'm going to text Jane right now.
I don't even remember what I texted you. That's bad. I should remember what I texted. I don't even remember. It feels like forever ago at this point. Was it a story?
No, it was a picture, something from your neighborhood.
Oh yeah. Okay, I do remember now.
Yeah.
Now I remember.
Yeah.
And then I also remember tweeting out something. Was it? No, it wasn't on Twitter. I did my Mets post while I was on because the Mets were struggling. The Mets had a bit of a rough patch there while I was out.
Okay, that was it. So the part I can read is, it was very nice of you. Miss you, buddy. I can only talk so much soccer. Me. You are missing the Mets going into the blank good times.
Yeah.
And the Yankees, from what I've seen, this is you. Or it's a good old-fashioned slump. And it only got worse for the Mets after that.
Well, the Yankees and the Mets are both kind of circling the drain right now, right? Like there's a lot of questions as we get closer to the All-Star break with these two teams. We could spend some time talking about that through the course of the afternoon as well. But it was true, man. I spent so much time with my cousins and my wife's cousins, and all they want to do is talk about football, meaning soccer. And, my daughters are both big fans of Lamine Yamal, who's this 17-year-old prodigy, plays for Barcelona. He's Spanish national team. And, knowing that we were in Madrid, they weren't going to take too kindly to anything they had to say about Barcelona. And sure enough, they were devastated when everybody in my family, all Real Madrid fans, were like, Lamine Yamal, what's he done? Show me something. He hasn't done anything. 17 years old. We've seen this before. He needs to win something, and then we'll talk. Barcelona sucks. Next case. I'm like, whoa. Yeah. They are, the Mets and Yankees rivalry or any regional rivalry that you want to, I'll put Barcelona, Real Madrid in Spain up against it because it is bloodthirst. They do not like each other. But I couldn't take it anymore. I had to come back, and we got to at least talk about the Mets. We got to at least talk about what's going on with the Yankees at some point this afternoon.
Yeah, geez, both are not looking great right now.
All right, let's get to Joe Yerdon covering the Sabres. Bleacher Report, noted hockey. We'll get caught up on everything that has gone on from the NHL draft to the trading of J.J. Peterka and what the Sabres are getting back in return. And what's the future of Bo Byram look like with Joe Yerdon? Noted hockey next on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Rochester Red Wings off tonight. Worcester coming to town tomorrow. There was some speculation online that Wings manager Matt LeCroy would get the call up to the Bigs. That did not happen. Miguel Cairo is the new interim manager for the parent Washington Nationals. Cairo taking over for Dave Martinez. Martinez, along with GM Mike Rizzo, fired on Sunday. Meanwhile, Amerks head coach Mike Leone working at development camp.
I thought we'd get a lot of guys back. I mean, it really speaks to Rochester and the organization of guys really wanted to be here. And anytime, you get 5 out of 60 back in the American League Hockey organization is incredible. And all the signings, I think we got 15 out of our 21 everyday guys back.
Joe Yurden joining us next year in the Sports Bar. Gene Battaglia, the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
They've raised the bar on Rochester Sports Talk. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
I was in Spain, actually. I was in Spain on a golf trip. And I think obviously, first of all, a weird feeling. Never gotten through something like that. But then just excitement. I was super pumped. I was with Lutz, actually, the guy who was in the system as well. So we're pretty happy.
There's former Buffalo Sabre, JJ Peterka. He and I had something in common. We were both in Spain when he got traded. As we welcome in Joe Yurden. So much has happened since the last time we spoke with you, Joe. Let's start with that Peterka trade, because I think the initial reaction was, what did they get back in return for a guy that was on the uptrend in JJ Peterka? Talk me through the decision to move off of Peterka and what the Sabres got back in return.
Well, I mostly just want to know who's the better golfer between you and JJ now.
I wasn't golfing with him, but I can promise you he is a better golfer than I am. There's no question about that.
Oh. Okay. So I know the initial reaction, and I'm guilty of this too. I did an instant snap winners and losers of the trade on Bleacher Report, and the first blush of it is that the Sabres are the big losers on it because they're getting rid of a guy who's 23 years old and scored 28 and 27 goals in each of the last 2 years, and that's a lot of offense to give up, even for a team that did score pretty well last year. But the guys are getting back in return. Michael Kesselring, right shot defenseman. He's a guy who's trending up. And I'm not going to crown him and say, he's the savior of the defense. He's the guy that's going to unlock everything and make it so that, this becomes one of the best defensive teams in the league. But this guy's good. He's a very good player. And, he's a guy Kevin Adams said he's targeted for a couple years now. And that's a smart move by him to be looking into a guy like this, because he's played very well. He's big. He's 6'5". He's physical. He will fight occasionally, although he admits that's not his thing. That's fine. There are other guys that will also be able to do that, next season. But Kesselring's going to be a very solid player, whether he's paired with Dahlin or if he's paired with Owen Power. I think we're all assuming he's going to be with Owen, but I don't know. I wouldn't be too surprised if we see him with Dahlin a little bit too. But it's a tough loss to give up a guy that's as young as JJ is, who scores as much. But Kesselring's a great get, and so is Josh Doan. Josh Doan, Shane Doan's son. So let's all feel a lot older for hearing that. But Josh Doan's going to be a guy that's going to slot in third, fourth line. Plays hard, forechecks like a demon, hits, can score occasionally, and both Kesselring and Doan played with Tage Thompson at World Championships, helping the U.S. win gold for the first time in 92 years at World. So there is a little bit of chemistry. These are both really positive guys, and I think that positivity and the talent level are net bonuses. But I said Kevin Adams comes out as a loser in that trade but I said I'm willing to walk that back depending on what happens in the Bo Byram trade, whenever that happens, and I think we're still waiting.
There wasn't the only move, but that was the one that folks debated the most. Alex Lyon is a Sabre coming over from Detroit. So How does this kind of get parsed out now? Does he have the ability here to be the 1A in this team? Is he a stopgap guy? What are your thoughts on Lyon coming over as the new goalie here in Buffalo?
I think he's going to be in the same kind of role James Reimer was last year. He's going to be the solid veteran that's going to pair up with, I'm going to presume, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen in Buffalo, and ideally be able to provide maybe a few more starts. This all depends on how well Luukkonen does and how Levi does in training camp and how Lyon does in training camp, honestly. Like, this is, it's a situation where we're going to be going into training camp saying, like, we think we know how this is going to work out, but we don't know until it plays itself out. And I think that's part of the frustration for some of the stuff going on with the Sabres, is that fans are just kind of like, all right, well, who's the guy? Well, Luukkonen's the guy, but he needs to be better. And Alex Lyon's a guy who's been very good in that kind of role in the past. I know Sabres fans are all too familiar with him from his time in Florida. They saw enough of him at the end of the season, that season a couple years ago. The last couple years in Detroit was hoping for some of that Florida magic to get them into the playoffs. Didn't quite work. Detroit has their own problems too. But I think the way this is going to end up shaking out is we're going to have Luukkonen and Lyon in Buffalo, and I think Devin Levi is going to be back in Rochester. And I don't think Amerks fans are going to be too upset about that.
Not at all. You mentioned Bo Byram, and I'm curious as to the timeline, where we are, where it all stands, and what could be next year for the defenseman.
Well, the last couple of days were interesting because Byram had arbitration rights, so did the team, and we were curious if one or the other was going to elect for arbitration. Byram didn't, but the Sabres did. So what that does is it takes the possibility of Byram signing an offer sheet completely off the table. So he can't do it. Can't be done. They'll schedule a hearing date sometime between, in July, late July, August. There will be a date where they'll go in, they'll argue their case for however much money they're looking for. I'm positive Byram has a very, very tasty amount of money in mind for what he wants, and the Sabres have their own target in mind. But because the team elected arbitration, Byram gets to decide what he wants the award to be, whether it's a 1-year contract or a 2. Now, if it's a 2-year contract, at the end of that 2-year contract, you can become an unrestricted free agent. But also, if it's a 2-year contract, the Sabres can't trade him at all for a year. So there's a lot going on here. In my mind, I don't imagine that Byram wants to get it to the hearing. I don't think the Sabres do either, although it'll get things settled. Because if it goes to a hearing, contract decision's made, and then that's that. Although, if the amount comes in, I think more than $4.8 million per year on an award, the team can walk away from it, which that is not going to happen. And if it does happen, then everybody will be very righteous and screaming about that happening. But we've seen it happen in the past with the Sabres and arbitration awards. They've walked away from guys before. I think Tim Kennedy was one. This is going back, ancient history at this point. But what this does is it's kind of a deadline for everybody. A deadline for either the Sabres and Byram to work out a deal that works for everybody to make sure everything's okay, or a drop dead date to get a trade done with another team. And I think that's where we're headed with this. If there are teams that were pursuing Byram and they were teasing the idea of maybe signing an offer sheet, maybe they're saying like, well, we don't like we don't like the hardball that you're playing. Maybe we'll play hardball back. Well, that's gone. So now it's like, all right, well, get serious and come to the table and let's try to figure out a trade here. But this provides some finality with how this is going to play out, because he's either getting traded or he's getting a contract.
Okay, so let's assume that it sounds like you're assuming that a trade is going to happen before they go to arbitration. What do you think Kevin Adams is fishing for here? What do you think he can get in return for Bo Byram? Because when I look at the list of centers on this team, short of Tage Thompson, I'm wondering who are centering lines 2, 3, and 4 for this team?
Well, I don't think I think the way Tage Thompson played on the wing last year, I don't know if we're going to see him at center again.
Yeah.
Because I think Yuri Kulik's going to be that center.
Okay.
Which, hey, listen, Yuri showed he can handle it last year, so that's good. But it's, it creates another question of sorts because, he's really young, and is he going to progress? Is he going to be more? What Adams wants ideally is a top 6 forward, and I think ultra ideally a top 6 forward and a defenseman to replace Byram. Now, won't necessarily be somebody of Byram's quality to replace him, but somebody who's an NHL player at least. But in his mind, like getting somebody to replace Peterka, in some form is what should happen here. And I think the teams that are involved in this process right now, which we've heard St. Louis, we've heard Vegas, we've heard LA was before LA signed every old defenseman that was available on the market. There's a couple teams that are out there floating about, but I look at those rosters and I'm like, I don't know if I find a top 6 forward in there necessarily, at least not one that makes the deal easy. So it's not as if Adams has painted himself into a corner here, but he's been laser focused on getting a guy for right now, a guy who can slot into that top 6 and score. The thing with an offer sheet was that if somebody came with an offer sheet, an unprotected first-round pick next year would have been on the table regardless, because that dollar amount would have necessitated there being a first-round pick there. I don't know if you're going to get one in a deal. Maybe you do, but futures aren't what he's after, and I don't blame him because, how do you try to win now when you're piling up picks? But next year's draft has a very, very, very interesting player at the top of it, Gavin McKenna.
Yeah, we're talking to our buddy Joe Yurden, who, by the way, is in the Capital District today, visiting friends and family. So we appreciate you giving us a few minutes here, Joe. This move I found peculiar. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but could you just explain why didn't Kevin Adams extend a qualifying offer to Jacob Bernard Docker? Bernard Docker, for folks who didn't know, he was one of the pieces that came over in the Dylan Cousins deal, and he ends up by not doing that signing with Detroit, so you're letting an asset walk out the door. What's the logic there, Joe?
So the qualifying offer he would have gotten would have been somewhere north of $800,000, which, drop in the bucket, all things considered, which that's fine. But Bernard Docker had arbitration rights, which you want to get yourself a raise. That's a good way to go about it. The way Kevin Adams explained it to us, and he is correct about this, is that, okay, if we extend him the qualifying offer, that's great. He's probably taken us to arbitration. So like that $850,000, whatever it is, can end up being double because ARB cases turn into comp cases where you're comparing how you've done to other players in your age range and how you've performed. There's a guy right on the Sabres right now in Jacob Bryson who stats are different, the usage is different, all that, whatever. But Jacob makes $1.8 million a year. So if Bernard Docker went to arbitration, the chances of him getting like an award for $1.5 million or something like that, where it's sizably more than the qualifying rate that the Sabres would have been comfortable in paying. They were just like, let's not go down that road for a guy who might not even be part of our top 7, top 8 defensemen here, given the moves they're making and what their plan was. So they were like, we love him, but not at the price it was going to cost. No, everybody's going to be screaming like, it's cheap, it's blah, blah, blah. I get it. I totally get it. But when it comes down to a numbers crunch, if you're paying a guy, $1.8 million to play in Rochester, hey, congrats to you, dude. Like, that's pretty cool, but not great for the team budget-wise, which, again, I know. It seems like, pennies in a bucket for a rich owner and all this, but in honesty, it's not the best use of money and roster space and all that, but it's more about fans being upset about the asset usage in that, and again, like Bernard Docker was essentially a body in, body out part of the Cousins trade with Dennis Gilbert going to Ottawa. I think it comes down to the principle of the thing that's got fans really up in arms about it.
Joe, I want to talk to you about the Sabres draft haul and get your take on their performance at the draft. But more than that, I wanted to find out what's next for Kevyn Adams here in his offseason checklist. How is he prioritizing things? We know that Alex Tuch is set to be an unrestricted free agent next summer, I want to say. So where does Adams prioritize things here? We talked about Byram. We talked about some other things. What's next for the GM?
Yeah, I think Byram, that stuff's got to be taken care of within like a month and a half tops. Getting something figured out with Tuch, and a lot of that depends on what Alex is looking for money wise, what he's looking for career wise, and everything. Sabres love him. They love everything about him. They love and he's an important player for them. It depends on how they view where he's going to be down the road. Obviously, because if you're going to commit 6, 7, I think this is the last year they can offer 8 years to a guy that they're going to re-sign or to offer an extension to. If you're going to go that far down the road, I mean, that's a big commitment from everybody. It's a big financial one and roster one for the Sabres, and it's a big overall commitment from Tuch because he becomes the absolute focus guy for what this team's going to be for the future. So, that's going to be a really interesting negotiation, I think, just because this is a big moment for Alex to really hit it big because he when he signed his extension with Vegas years ago, that was straight out of his ELC, I believe. So he hasn't had this moment to have like a real free agent. Well, okay, let's get down to it and let's set my future here kind of moment. So this is a big deal for him and his family. So I get that. I don't know that there's really a lot else for Kevyn Adams to work on here unless it's just hitting phones and seeing who's available out there. I mean, good luck getting through to some of the GMs. They're going to be up at the cottages where there's probably not a lot of cell coverage. But yeah, but Byram and I think getting Tuch squared away before we get to camp because I'm pretty sure nobody wants to be Alex doesn't want to be answering our questions about like, hey, hasn't something gotten worked out? Because it will be a distraction. Will absolutely be a distraction if there's not a deal done before we get back to training camp in September. But the hit list for what to get done here, it's really short because they've kind of taken care of everything here. Rochester's basically set. They've got their depth set. Some of the Amerks guys got two-way contract or NHL contracts, so like that's great for them. But yeah, everything seems kind of set, which. Again, if you don't like what they've done and you don't like the way things set up, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to say other than hope the Byram trade, if it happens, helps to change that picture.
Yeah, last one for me, Joe. The Sabres did have a draft. What stood out to you, if anything? Can some of these guys we be seeing in Rochester coming up here in October?
I don't think we're going to see anybody in Rochester. Ratty Murka, their first round pick. I don't know. I think he was on loan to Seattle from his Czech team, which would make him available for the AHL because otherwise he's got to go back to Seattle in the WHL. But I think given how many defensemen they've got squared away already in Rochester, I don't imagine that's a move they would make anyways. I think they want to see him kind of develop a little bit more there before bringing him to Roch. Some of these guys are ticketed for either junior hockey or college, and that's the best place for all of them to head off to just to get more of those reps there, play the game against equal guys. But I do like a lot of the guys. We got to see him at development camp last week. The few guys that I really liked, Novotny seems very interesting to me. I think that's a guy to keep an eye on during the next few years. I think that's somebody worth watching. David Bedkowski, another big, hard-hitting defenseman. I'm very interested to see how his junior career goes and where he goes. And like these junior guys, they can end up in college at some point, and vice versa. Now that wall's kind of been broken down. With the NCAA. So if these guys decide to trade out and switch up, then that's great. But But yeah, some of these other young guys like Adam Kleber, Luke Osborne, like they're headed to college. Kleber's already been at college. Osborne's headed to Wisconsin this season. So if you've got the college, you got some of those packages, the Big Ten package on your cable system, then might be worth it to tune in some weekends. Was
there a player that jumped off the ice to you from the 4 days of development camp at Harper Center?
Yeah, I think Scott Ratzlaff and Leinonen, the two goaltenders, who you're going to see in camp in Rochester in September, looked head and shoulders better than everybody else, which they should. They're both 20, 21 years old. They've got the time put in. Ratzlaff looks very confident. Leinonen might need a little warming up on this side of the ocean to get him going, but he's a big dude. He's a very big goaltender. I'll be very anxious to see what the Sabres plan is going to be for all of these guys, because if Levi's going back to Rochester and you've got two other really young dudes there, they might be trading back and forth between Roch and Jacksonville. That could be what goes on there. But yeah, Novotny was really interesting. Yeah, the defenseman really stood out. Kleber was great. I really liked Osborne. I think that's why I just was mentioning them before, because they're the ones at the front of my mind. But yeah, it's these are the guys to keep an eye on. I know the dev camp roster this year wasn't exactly sexy because all the Amerks guys that could go there weren't there. But yeah, things are on a good direction developmentally for this franchise. It's just that's not what anybody's interested in right now.
Yeah, I can't believe it, Joe. We got a CBA done. We don't have to worry or sweat here. Anything? Is there anything that kind of stood out? I guess we're going to get an earlier start here, not this season, but the year after.
Yeah, the 84 game schedule is a nice throwback to the early 90s, where that's the last time they were doing that kind of thing. Getting rid of some of the preseason games, I'm all for, just because preseason is just so weird. Starting the season sooner is great. I was mad when they started pushing things back into the second week of October to start years, and I'm like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, let's go. But those stand out. The contract extension changes, where the max is now 7 years for guys re-signing with their teams. The max outside of that is 6 years. I think it's an interesting twist. I don't know if the players are too geeked about it, but they must be okay with it because they signed on for it. But those two moves are interesting. I would love to see pardon the lawnmower here. I would love to see if they, if things would get a little bit softened with some of the junior player eligibility for the AHL. I don't know if that, I didn't see if that got touched at all, but yeah, the big ones with the schedule that's a sizable one. But yeah, get us going sooner. I'm very pro that.
Love it, Joe. Let everybody know what you're working on at Bleacher Report and Noted Hockey right now that we can check out.
Yeah, we'll be. I got a piece today on teams that are maybe got their eyes on Gavin McKenna already for next year's draft. Be afraid there's a certain local team that might be in that discussion right now. We'll have lots of stuff looking ahead to next season and all that going on at Bleacher Report. I'll be going through my prospect notes from Dev Camp and kind of sorting through a lot of that stuff the next couple of weeks. I'm getting circled by a lawnmower right now. I'm very afraid. But yeah, we're lots of stuff to go on through. I know everybody's taking a break, but there's still plenty of stuff to do, man.
Nice. Joe, great stuff as always. Enjoy some time here this summer, and should something happen, we're going to be giving you a ring. Appreciate you as always, bud.
I always appreciate the time, guys.
There he is, Joe Yerdon. Bleacher Report, Noted Hockey, getting us caught up on the Sabres, getting us caught up on the Amerks. Exciting stuff when you hear Michael Leone talking about, from Development Cap, talking about how everybody's looking. So, yeah, it's the off season, but does it ever really end? I mean, the NHL specifically, you went right from the Stanley Cup final into the draft. No real break.
No, right. I guess I understand. You know, you really want to get everything all set there.
NBA as well, though. NBA does the same thing.
NBA does it. About Gavin McKenna. So and everybody's saying this kid's going to go number one overall. He's going to play college hockey. And the report is he's going to play at Penn State.
Oh.
So, which is kind of cool because Penn State actually comes to play RIT here. So that'll be kind of a neat thing. Report was between Penn State and Michigan State, but looks like he's choosing the Nittany Lions.
All right, we are. Steve Cornianos, the draft analyst, will be stopping by, and we'll break down that Sabres draft and talk about some of the prospects that the Sabres got their hands on here at the end of the season and into the 2025 NHL draft. We have more on the way next. We have time for your calls, and hell, let's give away some tickets right now as well. If you're caller 5, we've got a free pair of tickets to see Adam Sandler September 21st. He's coming to KeyBank Center in Buffalo. That's all courtesy of Live Nation. Your tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. You can score them for free if you're caller 5 now at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The WBBF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
There was some speculation out of D.C. that Red Wings manager Matt LeCroy would get the call up to fill in. That did not happen. Miguel Cairo is the new interim manager of the Washington Nationals. Cairo taking over for Dave Martinez, who along with GM Mike Rizzo fired on Sunday. The Wings, as they typically are off on a Monday. Worcester coming to town beginning tomorrow night. Meanwhile, Marty Baron today talking about where things are at with Bo Byram.
I think Byram goes to arbitration, signs a one-year deal, and then is here and will be here until, there's a clear direction of where the Sabres season go. If it doesn't go well, okay, trade him at the deadline or before that to a team that wants him, and then they can extend him. But either scenario, your team is better.
Sports brought to you by Get My Perks 2-for-1 to Wildwood Country Club. Gene Battaglia and the sports leader, the Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Training camp starting July 23rd.
Sabres with a chance for Byram. Holds it, fires, scores! Welcome to Buffalo, number 4!
As you know, it is the return of
Mike Danger.
He's possibly the most famous broadcaster ever.
You're not going to recognize me when I come back. I mean, I'm going to be bronze peanut butter. Just straight up golden. You're right. Savage tan.
Gene Battaglia.
It feels like football season. We're going to be on the eve of football season here today.
I hope you had a great 4th of July.
Norman Powell to Miami, John Collins to the Clippers, Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson to the Jazz.
The Nationals fired longtime manager Davey Martinez and top executive Mike Rizzo.
The All-Star festivities next week down in Atlanta and the Home Run Derby.
U.S. men's soccer now 2-6 against Mexico in the Gold Cup final, losing last night in Houston 2-1.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
I'd say both of us fairly unrecognizable after that long hiatus here in the sports bar. You got your Cape Cod tan. The remnants of my tan from the European vacation are fading. But I was out in the yard this weekend. I'm at war with a stump. I'm trying to take a stump out of the backyard that we cut a giant bush down, and the thing won't move. And so I made an investment, a manly investment, a pickaxe.
Ooh.
Yeah. Hottest day of the year yesterday. I'm out there swinging a pickaxe like a madman.
You got to be careful with that.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Well, when you say be careful, you're worried about my ticker. What ended up stopping me wasn't the heat. It wasn't my ticker. I'll show you, Gene, and I'll show my hand looks like I either had a really lonely weekend or I really, really swung something very, very hard. And I hit the pickaxe. I was going at it so hard, and then I took one swing, and I'm like, ow. And I looked at my hand. I'm like, oh, I got 3 blisters on my hand from that last swing of the pickaxe. Time to call it a day.
As described, as only Mike Danger can describe.
That's what I do. Paint a picture in the mind's eye. Because I know if you saw it, you'd be like, the first thing somebody would say, I'm already running like somebody like Duffy. Like, what were you by yourself all weekend? What happened? What happened to your hand? No, I was out in the yard doing manly things. Trust me, until I could no longer be a man. It just shows me I got to callous up the hands a little bit more. I'm soft. Dainty hands that can't handle swinging a pickaxe. What's wrong with me?
Did you see any Bills logos on your travels over to?
Funny enough, I did.
Did you?
I did. We took a day, and we went up to the mountains of the Abruzzi region in a small village called Picentro. Way up in the mountains. Beautiful. Unbelievably old village. You go and you see the castles, and you see... You marvel at how they were built so many hundreds of years ago, and I'm sure they've been renovated in time and kept up in time. But just the ingenuity of human beings and our ability to do these kind of things. You could see where they used to put the gate down on the village so that intruders couldn't come into the village back in the day.
This is like when we go, looking around town here, and you see, this was built in the 1930s. Like, no, we have no idea.
No idea.
No idea.
Right. We're so our nation is still in its infancy when you consider some of the history in some of these European villages. And in Picentro, we have this unbelievable view of the country and the mountain range, and it's just awesome. It's breathtaking, and I'm loving it. The vibes are immaculate. The girls get their gelato. I get a cold one. I get a Peroni. And as we're walking back to our car and we're walking through the village, I look and it like this metal like box where they check your electrical. There is a Buffalo Bills logo. The Bills white helmet right there on it, like, graffiti, but it's there. It's accurate. I'm like, okay. And I as much as I wanted to marvel at it, like I didn't see any other football team or fan bases representing anywhere in Europe, but I did see a Bills logo in a small Italian village up in the mountains in Picentro, and I'm like, it doesn't surprise me. I have a feeling there's a lot of people in Rochester with ties to that region, a lot of people in Buffalo with ties to that region. It is Bills Mafia after all. I mean, there's something to that, and yeah, when I saw that, I'm like, oh, that warms my heart. There's a little piece of home right here in the middle of Picentro in the Abruzzi region, province of L'Aquila, up in the mountains. That was a little moment. That was a little surreal.
How did you deal with the language barrier?
It's a struggle.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. I mean, if we all had the gift of time, would we devote the time to learning a second language? Where would you prioritize? For me, I would prioritize it high. It would be a high priority for me.
Here's the thing. Like, unless you are using it regularly.
Yeah.
Dude, I took 4 years of Spanish at Aquinas.
Right.
It goes out. Yeah.
That's right. And until I was 5 years old, all I spoke was Spanish. That was all I spoke. My mother only spoke Spanish to me. I only spoke Spanish up until I got into preschool. And so somewhere in my brain, I feel like there's a something that can unlock, and maybe I can interpret or I can comprehend relatively easily, especially around my family, because I get their mannerisms. I see what they're saying. I understand their tone. Italy was a little bit more challenging for me, but that's where Sandy steps in, and she is the Italian equivalent to me and how I am with my Spanish relatives. We can both comprehend and we can communicate just enough to get by. But man, it'd be so much easier to go with more frequency if you didn't have to deal with the language barrier. And Google Translate it's a tool. You use it, and when you're lost, you just whip out Google Translate and you just ask them what you want to ask them and hope that they understand it. Sandy was actually using it to dictate, and it was translating in real time as I was having a conversation with one of my cousins, which I thought was kind of interesting. But that if we had the gift of time, that would be one of the things that I would prioritize. For me, it would be learn a second language. Learn Spanish. If I learn Spanish, then Italian should come relatively easily because they're fairly similar. But, we got by. Let's put it that way. We got by. And if you have I'm fortunate. I don't take it for granted. I know that for a lot of people, the trip that we just took would be a once-in-a-lifetime thing. We have family there, so the expense of lodging is wiped off the table. We don't have to worry about where we're staying. Part of my trip to Spain was dealing with my inheritance. And my inheritance from my mother from when she passed away was the flat in Madrid that my grandparents lived in. And squatters were living in it as recently as just a couple of years ago.
And the laws over there when it comes to squatting, not like here.
Well,
correct?
If you have kids, they're not evicting you. If you have children, they're not evicting you. So I got to see, for the first time since I was 8 years old, I got to see the flat that my grandparents lived in. That was mine. It belongs to me and it belongs to my cousin, 50-50. And so it was sad. It was a sad state of affairs. The neighborhood itself, not great. A block or two off of one of the main strips in downtown Madrid, but it is in downtown Madrid, so there's got to be some value to being in a flat in downtown Madrid. But to see what it had become was kind of sad. It was beat to hell. Yeah. The ceiling in the kitchen was black from smoke. Whatever they were cooking or doing in the kitchen kind of ruined the kitchen. So it wasn't something that I looked at and said to myself, oh, well, this is a place I can stay in the future. I'm not staying there in the future. And when I brought it up to my family, I'm like, they're looking at me like, why would you want a place to stay? You'll always have a place to stay. And maybe that's European culture, or they're just so willing to open up their homes and say, you're going to stay with us, your family. I think we would do the same thing, but we're also doing it like, oh boy, we got to get everything ready. Like for them, it's just natural. So I don't take any of that for granted, and I know that we're very fortunate that we have family in these two great countries outside of the USA that we can visit when we want to. So I had to get a little bit of business done and work on that.
So what's the conclusion on that? So the squatters are out finally?
The squatters are out. I spent a day in Madrid in the office of the notary public and basically gave power of attorney to my aunt who is there, who can do what she needs to do, mainly try to sell this flat. She's been dumping her own personal expense into the taxes and into the utilities and into trying to get the squatters out and all the legal fees and everything that went into it. I'm like, you make yourself whole, and then you tell me what goes on. And I'm totally fine with that.
Got some good locks on that place, though. Literally.
They got in through the balcony. They got in through another place and got in through the balcony, and there was no looking back at that. I'm like, my God. And apparently the people that were squatting in there have made a habit of it. They do it like every 3 years. They'll stay a place for 3 years, pack up, go to the next place, stay a place for 3 years, never pay for a place to stay in their life. I'm like, just gypsies. It drives me insane. So the thought of that is troubling. The idea that you can't do anything about it. It's your property, but you can't do anything about it was more than frustrating for me. But I think we have some resolution, some closure. We can move on from it. And like I said, I don't take it for granted. I know Sandy feels the same way. Family is everything. We'll always have a place with family there. So it was an amazing trip. And to answer your question, long way of saying, yes, there was some Bills spottings in Italy. The Mafia is strong in the Abruzzi region. The Bills Mafia, that is.
That should be everywhere at this point.
By the way, the guy, credited with Bills Mafia, right? Del Reed, friend of the show. I don't know if you saw this or not. I guess this is maybe the biggest piece of Bills news of the day. I can't really.
Well, James Cook getting named to the top 100, but that's
right.
Manufactured content every time this year where the NFL wants to still, let's debate who should be in the top 100, react. And,
yeah.
Okay, that's great that James Cook, and that'll help his market value. When
Pinto Ron is a Rochester guy, right? I want to say he is. Ken Johnson.
I think so.
I think so, too. And Del Reed at 26 Shirts has created a Pinto Ron action figure. Complete with mustard in one hand, ketchup in the other. And according to Reed, this is going to be the first of a Superfan series, assuming that this one goes well. And I have a feeling it will go well because it, like everything else with 26 Shirts, will go to charity. It will support a charity. No word yet on how much it's going to cost.
Okay, so like if we're going to go, let's name super fans. You have Pinto Ron.
Yeah.
You have the Elvis. You have the two chefs.
I know he's no longer with us, but you got to do Poncho.
Mm-hmm.
We have a Bills version of Darth Vader, right? Don't we?
Think, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you could come up with some pretty good super fans.
My buddy Nick from Greece always puts his, fireman's hat on, and he sits in the corner by the end zone.
You get the guys that wear the Tribe of Buffalo hats from the Flintstones, right? Those guys. Yeah. So nice job by Del Reed as always, and we saw the Pinto Ron action figure. Ooh, that's kind of fun. I think a lot of people will line up for that one, and again, all for a good cause, as everything is with 26 Shirts. I saw this, Gino. Let me see if I can stump you. I don't think I can, but let me try.
It's probably very easily because you've been back a little longer. I just got back yesterday afternoon, and my brain is still.
Well,
in a
this is
different
still our
state,
wheelhouse.
So
So this is the NFL that I'm going to try and get you on here.
All right.
Over the last 8 seasons, there have been a total of 7 franchise taken for the 16 Super Bowl berths. Okay, 8 seasons, 7 franchises, AFC, NFC. Can you name those 7 franchises that have been to the Super Bowl over the last 8 seasons?
All right, so Kansas City.
Yep.
Cincinnati.
Yep.
All right, let's just go. Give me Philadelphia.
Yes.
Give me the Rams.
Yes.
Give me the Buccaneers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that would be 5. Ooh, this is where it gets interesting because now all the years kind of run together. Again, not good, baby. So, all right.
You have one team in the NFC that has been there twice.
Oh, the 49ers.
You got it? You have one team in the AFC. I'll narrow it down to you. In the AFC East, that's been there once.
Yeah, so we're going back all the way to Brady.
The last 8 seasons.
Yeah, that's it.
But the idea that there's only 7 franchises that have made it to the Super Bowl over the last 8 seasons. Wouldn't it be nice? I bring it up because wouldn't it be nice just to say
that we had number?
Yeah. Like, you think about, and everybody that you talk about the Bills, everybody's optimistic this time of year. It's a season of optimism. And, of course, everybody will look good in shorts in a couple of weeks here when we're at St. John Fisher, and we'll be talking even more about the Bills, their chances to be in the Super Bowl, and their chances to make it. I mean, when you think about the AFC right now, the list of true contenders is short. It's not a real exclusive list. It's a fairly exclusive list. It's the Chiefs. It's the Bills. I say it's the Ravens. I say it's the Bengals. And maybe the Texans. And why I put them all in there, I think to myself, all right, they've got quarterbacks. I mean, the Bengals, you could argue defense is going to be a struggle. We don't know what that defense is going to be. But at least the Chiefs, Bills, and Ravens, you would say, like, okay, those are surefire contenders.
I'm going to put 2 other teams in the, all right, don't discount the Chargers.
Sure.
Just because that brand of football, they could go on the road and win cold weather games. That's a team that I don't think I would want the Bills facing. I don't know what to make of Denver.
Yeah.
What if Bo Nix steps up and all of a sudden, boom, there's the Sean Payton offense that we saw years ago in New Orleans, and, oh, by the way, they have this lights-out defense. Denver's a little scary to me.
Yeah. When I think about 7 teams in 8 seasons representing the AFC and NFC in the last 8 Super Bowls, it kind of shines a light on teams that get quarterback right. They stay good. Good teams stay good, and bad teams continue to stay bad until they get that quarterback right.
Yeah, like out of those teams, like what would be the team that maybe you say the Rams took a shortcut by trading for Stafford? Like nobody thought Matthew Stafford in Detroit was ever going to be there, and they saw something, and it ended up working out.
I mean, they had a great team around him. He was the missing piece. You could have said, well, they made it with Goff. Yeah, they made it with Goff, and they won it with Stafford. Stafford being, just slightly better than Jared Goff when you needed him to be. But the dream of a Detroit Buffalo Super Bowl at Levi's Stadium come February, I mean, like that would be refreshing. That would be fun. I'm not saying Detroit's going to represent the NFC, but give us somebody different. Give me somebody other than the Niners who've been there twice, the Eagles who've been there 3 times.
Give me the Commanders.
That would be fun,
yeah.
Right? That would be a lot of fun. All right, Gino, I didn't think I could stump you on that one.
No, you pretty much did because, I think the Patriots 8 years ago,
yeah.
It feels like longer than that,
doesn't it? It sure does. Steve Cornianos is the draft analyst. We're going to pick apart the Buffalo Sabres 2025 draft class with the draft analyst, Steve Cornianos, joining us next on The Fan.
You're listening and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester. Sick of your smart speaker giving you weather updates instead of game scores? Tell it to play 95.7 The Fan and watch your device shift from meteorologist to sports guru. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Wings are off tonight. Worcester coming to town tomorrow night. Now, there was some speculation that Matt Lekroy, Wings manager, would get the call up to fill in Washington. That's not going to happen. Miguel Cairo is the new interim manager for the Nationals. Meanwhile, Amerks head coach Mike Leone taking in development camp all about everything that is coming back here.
I thought we'd get a lot of guys back. I mean, it really speaks to Rochester and the organization of guys really wanted to be here, and anytime, you get 5 out of 60 back in the American League Hockey organization is incredible, and all the signings. I think we got 15 out of our 21 everyday guys back.
Steve Cornianos, the draft analyst, will join us next. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Neat or on the rocks? It's the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Danger and Battaglia back in the Sports Bar from vacation, and so much has happened over the course of the last few weeks. That's why we welcome in Steve Cornianos. He is the draft analyst, and the NHL draft is now in the rearview mirror. Free agency is underway in the NHL. And Steve, we wanted to get your take on the NHL draft as a whole, but also specifically on what the Buffalo Sabres did. I know that, you can't really put a grade on a draft because the grade would probably be incomplete. But do you sense or see anything in the patterns of how the Sabres have drafted here 2 years now with Lindy Ruff in terms of what direction they might be going in with the prospects that they've drafted?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, I think Jerry Ford himself said that there's like a little bit of recency bias every year in the draft, and specifically in the Eastern Conference, you had Tampa winning 3 straight Eastern Conference titles, and then you have Florida now in 3 straight. So he said that size, toughness is a part of it. I think the Sabres definitely had the skill requirement met. If you look back at their drafts from, let's say, 2019 and 2021, et cetera, 2022. So I think that usually teams I'll get upset if they maybe just focus too much on size and try to address needs and not really taking home run swings. But the Sabres have taken plenty of home run swings in the past, regardless of size. I think the analytics department has quite a say in how they draft. So that's always going to help the smaller players. But this particular draft, and even last year as well, I think many of us predicted that the Sabres were going to, unless it was something like a Hellenius falling onto their lap like last year, they were really going to focus on the defense and goaltending, and really just kind of like what they did. They still didn't ignore skill completely. They saved that for the back end of this year's draft class. But in the early rounds, they really focused on what I consider to be, I think what many people consider to be not necessarily a need, but just kind of like a contingency. Like, let's balance out the left and the right side of the defense. Let's add a couple of goalies. I felt personally that it was a pretty decent goalie crop this year. So although we knew that the centers were going to be prevalent in terms of the first half of the first round, I think the Sabres made the right call with what they did over the weekend in Los Angeles.
Yeah, the Sabres taking 2 goalies, 1 winger, 3 centers, 3 defensemen, the top 2 picks in their draft. Let's start with number 9 overall, Radim Murka. Your thoughts on him? What kind of timeline might he be under here to join the NHL? Maybe there's a stopover in Rochester. Your thoughts on Buffalo's first-round pick?
Well, the most important thing about Murka is that if Matthew Schaefer didn't exist, he'd probably be the first defenseman off the board. So I'm not just saying that because he was the second defenseman off the board after Schaefer. I mean, he really was that good, and it really started way back the year prior in his draft -1 season. Like Schaefer, he had a great Ivan Holinka tournament, and then he made the Czech Extraliga team, the A team, out of camp, I guess you want to call it camp. And he kind of like was a fish out of water in that. I felt like the jump from the U18 tournament level to the adult league was a little bit of not to say a shock, but he wasn't who he really is, which is a very confident and assertive young man with the puck, without the puck. So I think the midseason switch to Seattle and the dub really helped him out. You saw him kind of find his game again, so to speak, and he's the kind of defenseman that really could take over a game. He could do it with his physicality, he could do it with his skating, he could do it with his playmaking, his shot. He could create his own shot. So this is a high-end defensive player we're talking about. And if you look at the right side on the Sabres prospect depth chart, there's some soft-handed guys with quick feet, but not a guy that you would think could put up a lot of points. Whereas I think now with Merca there, he could be a top pairing guy. That's pretty much his ceiling, and that's a good thing when you have that right shot defenseman who you can match up against top lines because he gives you the size. He's got the quickness to keep up with forwards off the puck. So I had them going for Aitchison, Sean Aitchison, only because I felt that Merca was going to be gone by 9. I thought he was going to go to Utah at 4, and apparently the Senators ruled the day. We kind of, in a way, expected that. So in a sense, you could say that this is a little bit of a steal for the Sabres at 9.
And it feels like they had a type going into the draft and even into free agency here. They trade for Kesserling, they trade for Connor Timmins, and then their second pick, another large right shot defenseman in David Bedkowski. What can you tell us about him?
Well, I think this is my speculation. I think that the big defenseman that went early in the second round triggered the trade with Pittsburgh to acquire Timmins and Isaac Beliveau. So you got the righty in Timmins, the lefty in Beliveau, and they're okay. I think Timmins, as long as he stays healthy, he could be an NHL defenseman, whereas Beliveau was a little kind of blocked with Wilkes-Barre Scranton, so he saw time between the ECHL and the AHL. I really don't know what his ceiling is at this point. He's about 23. But I think when guys like Blake Fiedler and Jacob Rombach and maybe even Amico went, these are big defensemen, 2 of them being righties. I think that's what triggered the trade. And I don't want to say that they settled with Bedkowski. It's just that Bedkowski wasn't as established as some of those guys. He was a pretty prominent figure in the trade between Oshawa and Owen Sound, with Oshawa drafting him, I believe, in the second round of the OHL draft. So he was pretty high profile. And then they packaged a million pieces together to get Colby Barlow, the Winnipeg Jets first rounder from 2 years ago, who was Owen Sound's team captain. So Bedkowski, in a way, was like the centerpiece going back to Owen Sound. They weren't a very good team this year, but he was the top pairing guy, top penalty kill, matched up against the opposing top lines. He's got a physical element. He could drop the gloves, pretty quick feet. So I don't know if there's a lot of, let's say, offensive upside to his game, but he's actually a pretty smart defenseman. You think of these pugilists and these big body types as stay at home and lumbering, but to throw a blast from the past, kind of like Mike Ramsey, where you're a guy who's going to block shots for you. He's going to clear out the front of the net. So you're happy with that, especially in the third round. So I thought that was a pretty good value pick for the Sabres.
Steve Coriano is our guest here, breaking down the NHL draft. As Steve, take a wider look here. Who had a good draft? Which teams did you think came away with some good things here?
Well, the Islanders. I mean, the Islanders. Usually, the way that I assess a draft, whether it's good or bad or average, is kind of like not just something how my rankings go, but how I just feel about the prospect. If I'm really motivated by a certain player throughout the course of the draft season. I mean, the Islanders really, it was just one after the other. Now, they did have to trade Noah Dobson to acquire those 2 first-round picks that became Eklund and Aitchison. But those 3 picks by themselves is a home run for any team. And I guess contrary to popular belief, I actually like what Pittsburgh did. And I know Kyle Dubas, I've been very critical of the way he's had his scouts draft in the past. Took a little bit of a gamble, I thought, on Ben Kinzel at 11th overall. But the rest of the draft, they took some pretty big swings for the with high skilled guys, and I'm always a big fan of that. And then really the Boston Bruins, you come away with James Higgins at 7. You get high skilled guys, which is what the Bruins really need, in Cooper Simpson, Will Moore, and Cole Chandler. So I think that Yemelyanov, the Russian kid. So I think every team did well. I think every team went into this draft specifically looking for the size, for the grit, for those lunch pail types. Any added bonus you get with a finesse or a dual threat offensive weapon was a bonus. But most of the teams, I think, went for, it's like what Jerry Fortin said. You watch the playoffs and you kind of want your team to look like that one day. Granted, it's probably going to be 6, 7, 8 years down the road if they're lucky to be as good as Florida. But, I don't really think any team had a bad draft, put it that way.
He's Steve Cornianos. You can follow him on X at The Draft Analyst. Steve, you mentioned Florida, and as the season was winding down and we see the Panthers hoist their second Stanley Cup consecutive years, a lot of chatter around what some perceive to be an advantage that Florida and or Tampa have being in that state. And I think a lot of hockey insiders dismiss that notion entirely. I wanted to get your take on that because there's a lot of people that would fight that just by saying, you know what, these are good teams, good organizations that have done a great job of drafting and developing their own players and working them up through the ranks to where they are, making smart decisions.
So I can look at it from both sides. So I definitely see the argument, right? I don't think it's a shock that a player would want to maximize his, let's say, salary in a tax-friendly state like Florida. And, oh, by the way, weather's favorable year-round, and now you have this kind of like huge following now, but it still doesn't even compare to the big major cities where a lot of these guys could be anonymous. You have football still number one in Florida. Baseball's pretty big down there as well. So I think the players like that. But at the same time, you have to wonder, when the players themselves, when they look at how the Lightning and how the Panthers have been built, and they're being able to get these guys and use the, let's say, the fine print within the CBA to have cap flexibility around the trade deadline, all these things, and then also retaining them. I mean, it's going to be I think it's an easier sell to convince a pending free agent, one of your own, to stay for less money because of the financial advantage that the state of Florida offers. I think a small little piece to it, too, might have been it could only be temporary, that because of COVID and all the restrictions that went on in North America and Europe, Florida was one of the first states that said, well, we're going to be open for business. I think that might have appealed to some of the players who just wanted to play. So I think it's cyclical. Remember that Tampa and Florida used to be really bad. Florida especially, they could not fill that arena for anything. They made the playoffs, I think, twice in like an 8 or 9 year period. They couldn't get out of the first round when they did. And even this current group, or this current management group, they couldn't get past the second round. They were struggling, even though they had great regular seasons. So it's more like I think it was their turn. And now that they've established themselves as the premier team in the league, we'll see how long it lasts. I don't think it's going to last that long. The hunt is going to become the hunted, and it's going to be someone new coming up pretty soon.
Wow, imagine that, struggling to get past the second round here. Or even getting into the playoffs. I mean, this is a record drought for the Buffalo Sabres. They and the Jets right now tied for the longest playoff drought in the four major sports. My question is, all right, I'm not going to tell anybody that this is going to be the year that Buffalo breaks it. Let's say they don't. Let's say it's another non-playoff season and they're going to be in the lottery again. Tell me a little bit about Gavin McKenna. Everybody's saying he's going to be the top pick in 2026. Are you buying in on the hype? McKenna, by the way, committing here to Penn State. Your thoughts on McKenna?
Well, he's a phenomenal prospect. I think we learned our lesson a little bit with Connor Bedard. I was part of that, I guess, that hype machine, and Mitch Korb as well, where, we saw Crosby and Ovechkin do wonderful things when they first came into the league. We saw McDavid do the same thing, whereas Bedard was phenomenal in his junior days with Regina, and he's kind of been – he's still very good at almost a 70-point player his first 2 years before turning 20. So I think we have to temper expectations with McKenna, okay? He's not the biggest guy. He might have to adjust. I think going to college in a very difficult physical conference like the Big Ten is going to be telling, because we saw James Higgins make that transition from junior to college, and the kid got killed, and he still averaged a point a game, and it hurt his draft stock. So do I see McKenna having like a Jack Eichel or a Paul Correa or an Adam Fantilli type of freshman season in college? He should, because that's how skilled he is. But again, when teams want to tank or center their season or their draft strategy around this one player, I would say be careful with that, because even with the Bedard situation, we're seeing now that Mitch Colvin, Fantilli, and Carlson, maybe even a guy like Will Smith, these players have the potential to be equally good, I think, at least. So in the long term. So, but yeah, the hype is real. He basically, I don't think he carried medicine hat to the Memorial Cup. He was a pretty big reason why. But this year, smaller finesse player playing in the rough and tumble Big Ten, it's going to be, I think a lot's going to be revealed about his game, good or bad. But I think he's going to come out on top and still be the number one overall pick.
Steve, when you're breaking down prospects, do you continue to kind of follow along as they become pros? And I'm leading you into the season that we saw here firsthand in Rochester with Constant Hellenius. I wanted to get your scouting report of him coming into the pros, and if you had any insight as to his first season here in North America.
Well, I loved Hellenius. I think I had him ranked 5th last year. To answer the first part of your question, I try not to, because there's a lot of, hockey's got like 50,000 leagues you got to cover, and I'm just one dude, so it's a lot of work. I do keep tabs on it. I do watch the AHL on occasion, not as much as I used to. But Rochester's always been a team that I followed because I'm waiting for the Sabres to finally hit. And, I tracked them this year. And just listen, I don't mean to disparage anybody in Buffalo, but I kind of like watching Rochester play more than I like watching the Sabres.
Same.
And they were a heck of a team this year. And I think even Levi being back down there on a full-time basis is going to be good for him. I know he probably doesn't agree with that, but you have a lot of firepower down there before Hellenius showed up, and then the transition from the Finnish men's league to the AHL was pretty seamless. So I don't really know his timeline to making it to the NHL, because, like I said, the Sabres have guys down there that have paid their dues. But this kid is just a brilliant playmaker. I mean, he's all. It doesn't matter what level he's at. So he's going to be playing at the World Junior Summer Showcase coming up in Minnesota. He's going to probably be, if the Sabres release him, he'll be playing for Team Finland at the World Juniors. But I love him. I really do. He's a guy that I'm kind of rooting for more than the average, let's say, 2024 prospect, because he was marginalized because of his size. And I'm like, no, this kid's brilliant. He's got a high IQ, he's got great vision. So outside of the adjustment to the rink size and the physicality, I think he's going to be fine. I mean, you're probably looking at maybe 2 years he'll be in the NHL.
Yeah, Danger, I just got to tell you, I was wrong when I was texting our guest here, Steve Corianos, because this was prior, to free agency, everything kind of beginning, where I said, Steve, I'm looking forward to July 7th when we talk about the J.J. Peterka trade to the Rangers.
Oh, yeah.
To the Rangers.
To the Rangers. Yeah. I'm sure the Rangers would have offered up more than whatever. Your thoughts on because that's kind of the buzz here. Like, wait, that's all. Maybe we're wrong on this, but that's all Buffalo got back for J.J. Peterka, a guy who could be a number 2 center in this league easily.
I get it, but here's the thing: it hasn't worked for a long time, so you have to take more chances. So I know that Adams is not a popular guy, but from an outsider's perspective, he really has nothing left to do but to go with, like, tough guys to play against. So although you could say, well, listen, it's definitely tough to play against the guy who's going to have a 70-point season, and that's the kind of player Peterka was. I had him in the first round. So when the Sabres got him, and we talked about it, I said I was very happy with the pick. However, if you didn't watch Kesselring play and you don't watch Josh Doan play, you're going to automatically defer to the stats and say, oh, whatever. I think they could have gotten more value, but I think it's more along the line. It went more along the line of, let's say, Adams's strategy, which is, you're going to trade Middlestat for Byram. You're going to trade Savoy for McLeod. You're going to trade Cousins for, Norris. So some of these guys, they got knocked for their play off the puck. They weren't back checking hard enough, and so they soon found their way out of Buffalo. I know there's also the history of players leaving Buffalo and becoming superstars, wearing a different uniform. But I think that the Sabres probably viewed it as, listen, we got Kulik, we have Rosen, we have Ostlund, we have, I don't think firepower really is a problem. If I recall correctly, they were like a top 15 team, better than average offense this year. And you go back 2 years when they were a really good offense. So I think the intent is to make life easy on the goalies, God bless Peterka. We love his skill, but he really didn't make life easy on his own goalies. And I'm saying it's his fault, just his style. So, again, when you have a deep farm system, when you have all these assets, you could take a swing like that. But, again, I would have definitely asked for something, I guess, with all due respect to Josh Stone, maybe something more. Because, Utah they've had like 48 picks in the last 5 years heading into the draft. It's not like he was the only thing they had available. But, we'll just have to wait and see. A lot of pressure is going to be on Kesselring, though, and Doan to contribute. But, when you have a 13-game winless streak in the middle of the season and Peterka's in the lineup, you have to ask yourself, well, what exactly do we have to fix here? And losing games to teams you should have beat, maybe tighten up defensively, make life easier on the goalie. I think your chances the Sabres were pretty bad at this year. So I think that's, again, I'm speculating. But that's just how I think they viewed the trade. But if you're a Sabres fan, you're upset about it. I totally understand.
I wonder, though, how much of this goes into it as well, Steve. And NHL players, like any professional athlete, you want them to feel a part of the community. And if you don't want to be a part of what we're trying to build here, then we're not going to put a gun to your head. We're going to find value where we can and move on from you. Do you think Peterka, did Peterka make it almost like, well, we have to move on from him? He just don't want to be here.
It's possible, I don't know.
We saw it with Eichel talking about guys who, have gone on to bigger and better things since leaving Buffalo.
But winning cures everything. So
Yes.
I think if the Sabres were winning and you had that buzz back, like you have the same buzz that you had back in, let's say, 2007, or you have the same buzz you had in 99. Like everyone wants to stay. They want to be a part of it. And I understand it's kind of a slippery slope when you are a losing team and you're trying to convince people to stay and be part of the solution. But it's like Bedkowski said in his interview, which I thought was pretty impressive for a young man, when he was asked, like, hey, like, does the situation in Buffalo, like, concern you at all, meaning the playoffs? He's like, no, nothing lasts forever, and he wants to be part of the solution. So maybe 5 years from now we could say, you know what, it worked out. It was for the best of the team. But I agree. If Peterka didn't want to be here, he was going to probably make that a point well into his, you lock a guy up and now you have a no move clause, then you're really running into problems there. So in a way you could say maybe possibly that they avoided a bigger headache down the road.
All right, Steve, great stuff. We should do this more than once a year. Really appreciate you coming on today. Steve Korianos, the draft analyst. Tell everybody how they can get more of your work.
Just find me on Substack, the draft analyst, and that's pretty much it.
Well, Steve, we know that your work never ends. You're going to be looking at prospects for 2026 and beyond and tracking their growth and their development as they all look to become professionals. Appreciate you giving us some time and sharing your insight on the Sabres draft this year.
No problem, Gene. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
You got it. There he is, Steve Korianos, the draft analyst. Follow him on X at the draft analyst. You can also follow us at the Fan Rochester on X. He's right, man. There's so many leagues worldwide to actually the job of an NHL prospect analyst is next level. You're Rain Man.
Yeah, like compare that to football where, okay, college football Saturday and maybe the occasional Thursday or Friday game where, again, again, you're only dealing for one continent here. Like the idea that like you got to know something about the KHL, you got to know something about Sweden and Finland, and he's amazing. Should be working in a front office somewhere.
Yeah.
Now a few things that come out of that, like that spark. Okay, what did everybody miss here while we were on summer vacation? One, the notion that Peterka was, hey, I don't want to be here, get me out of here. Paul Hamilton was adamant with us. He said no, that when he talked to him, everything was on the up and up unless something changed. It might still be in there in the sound where Hamilton talked about how he thought this was agent driven specifically. He was saying this is the agent saying we need to get you somewhere else that's going to pay you accordingly.
Okay.
We may not have it.
I don't, but that makes sense. And far be it from an agent to try and get value for their client and pat a little bit of extra cake in his wallet as well.
Now, and then the other thing, and it was actually a guy that we had on our show years ago that brought this up originally. Hey, we're going into another exciting finish here to the Stanley Cup. Oh my gosh, Edmonton is going to not win it again. It was Steve Levy, not on our show, but somewhere else, talking about should the Oilers trade Connor McDavid. And now all of a sudden, do you realize Connor McDavid is going to be an unrestricted free agent next year? Do you realize Jack Eichel is going to be an unrestricted free agent next year? Next year's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
And the idea, should the Oilers break this up, what do you do? What's the timeline? That is going to dominate everything. If they don't like when we talked last hour to Joe Urin about Tuck not getting a contract, that'll be a distraction. Oh, no. The idea that Connor McDavid might go into this season without a long-term deal.
I don't know how you could even entertain the idea of trading the best player in the world. I know that it's happened before. It's not unprecedented. I know that it's happened before, and with the same team, ironically. But I just can't see why Edmonton would see value in moving on from Connor.
Yeah, the quick history lesson on that, it was an owner named Peter Pocklington who basically was busted. He had no money, and this was before you had big TV money coming in, even to Canadian markets. He really had no choice. He was backed up against it. The Kings saw an opportunity. That's how the Gretzky trade happened. My gosh, how many years ago now? 30, more than that, right? 88. You don't have to do that with McDavid. The only reason McDavid might want to move is, all right, family or whatever. But we also had our guy, Dennis Bernstein, on. And this was right before. Dennis says, no, he's going to stay there long term. His wife just opened up a new bar there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's nobody trying to woo him away from Edmonton.
So good. And the fact that he can't get over on Florida, that's a tough one. But it's going to make it when he does finally get one, and I think he will get one. When it does finally happen, it's going to be sweet. Not that I wasn't really rooting for Florida, but you want to see the best player in the world hoisting the cup at some point.
But Florida, and I'm not a Florida fan, but don't you just admire how that team is gritty and how they're built and how they play at a different level in the postseason?
The thing that I love about Florida has a player who reminds me of the Blackhawks teams that I loved that won their 3 Stanley Cups. Jonathan Toews was like the glue, the captain, the guy that held everything together. And it's very clear and apparent that Florida has that, and a guy that doesn't get the headlines, but Barkov is that guy. Barkov is the dude that just makes it all work. I know Kachuk is a flashier name. We gravitate towards Reinhart. Barkov is the glue. Barkov makes it all happen for that team. I love that player. One of my favorite players in the league. I just hate that he's playing for Florida and not somewhere else. What are you going to do? We got to get to happy hour next. We're back in the sports bar after our little hiatus, our summer holiday. As I heard, you're on holiday. Oh, yes, you're on holiday. Not vacation, holiday. We're on holiday. We're back from holiday. We're gearing up for Buffalo Bills training camp just over 2 weeks from now. We have plenty of time for your calls if you want to join us during happy hour. The number is 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and HD2 Rochester and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
There was some speculation online out of the D.C. area that Rochester Red Wing manager Matt LeCroy would get the call up to the Nationals. That didn't happen. Miguel Cairo named as the new interim manager of the parent club. Cairo taking over for Dave Martinez, who, along with GM Mike Rizzo, were fired on Sunday. Wings are off tonight. Worcester coming to town tomorrow. Meanwhile, hockey, Marty Baran on where things stand with Bo Byram.
I think Byram goes to arbitration, signs a one-year deal, and then is here and will be here until, there's a clear direction of where the Sabres season go. If it doesn't go well, okay, trade him at the deadline or before that to a team that wants him, and then they can extend them. But either scenario, your team is better.
Sports brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Get 2 rounds for the price of 1 to Wildwood Country Club. Gene Battaglia and the sports leader, The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Training camp starting July 23rd.
Sabres with a chance for Byram. Holds it. Fires. Scores! Welcome to Buffalo, number 4.
As you know, it is the return of
Mike Danger.
He's possibly the most famous broadcaster ever.
You're not going to recognize me when I come back. I mean, I'm going to be bronze peanut butter. Just straight up golden. You're right. Savage tan.
Gene Battaglia.
It feels like football season. We're going to be on the eve of football season here today.
I hope you had a great 4th of July. Norman Powell to Miami, John Collins to the Clippers, Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson to the Jazz.
The Nationals fired longtime manager Davey Martinez and top executive Mike Rizzo.
The All-Star festivities next week down in Atlanta and the Home Run Derby.
U.S. men's soccer now 2-6 against Mexico in the Gold Cup final, losing last night in Houston 2-1.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
It's happy hour. Gino and I back from holiday in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us. Thanks for watching on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester and listening on multiple platforms, the Odyssey app, iHeartRadio, TuneIn. You can hear us wherever you get your favorite shows. You can search out the sports bar and find us in podcast form on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I am Mike Danger. That is Gene Battaglia.
Yeah, it's been too long here, buddy. Like, this was the longest break because of your vacation, my vacation. 2 weeks from now, Bill's camp.
We're getting close.
Like, if you're driving by Fisher, you see the tents already up. Do not wish summer away here, but football is coming.
Well, our regulars, the greatest regular of all, our number one regular, Chris in South Central Kentucky, wanting to know what was the biggest story that broke while we were off. I don't know if look. I'll say this. We talked about this earlier. The idea that we could be losing one of our local teams is a pretty big story.
Locally, yes. By the way, I reached out to the NLL front office and the commissioner, and nobody's returning my call. So you would think somebody would say, hey, everything's going to be all right. No, the Nighthawks, read the tea leaves. They're gone. That, to me, that would be number one for our community. Nationally, let me put this one out there. We haven't even talked about this. If you have somebody that carries a team to Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and that the team is actually leading at halftime, but then in the first half, blows out his Achilles, and now he's going to miss the rest of the next year. Tyrese Halliburton missing all of next year now. Like, that is 3 guys now. Tatum, Dame time too. 3 guys, playoffs, blowing out their Achilles.
That was a big story. You know, the Panthers repeating as Stanley Cup champs. That was a big story. Let's drill it down to the Bills, because when the team breaks from OTAs, which they did shortly before we took our time, the story broke here on Maxwell Harrison. I don't know how big of a story this was, but I did feel the reverberations from across the pond as this was happening, and I was kind of checking things in my free time during my time off. And, you know, we want to reserve judgment. We don't know all of the facts of the case. We assume that the Bills they told us they did their research on Hairston before they drafted him. They knew about what this kid is, and they believe he's got a good reputation. However, there's a civil suit on Hairston that is just kind of surfaced conveniently here during the off season.
So that's a story that we'll monitor, and I don't think there's anything more we can say about that.
That's it.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
it,
you know, I could say kind of fishy that it's happening all these years after the fact. It is a civil suit. You know, if the Bills do what the Bills do, if it is still a story here in a couple of weeks, well, then I would expect we'd hear from Harrison probably day one of training camp. I don't know that they'll even need to do that because I don't know that.
No, he's a rookie. I don't even think they're putting him out there.
I don't know that you need to do that. I don't know that this is a big enough deal, and who knows what exactly comes out of that. And you mentioned Cook, James Cook being in the top 100 of NFL players, and James Cook, you know, at this point, if he were to get an extension, I'd be shocked. If he were to get an extension for the Buffalo Bills, I just think most of us have to come to the realization that he's going to play out the final year of his deal here and hit free agency and make the boatload of money that he's trying to make.
Yeah, and you know, if he makes a lot of money, it's because he had a great year. So, like the proverbial win-win, as they say.
Yeah.
I'd be all in favor of that. Back to Harrison. I mean, the only thing, Danger, is that does Hard Knocks even go anywhere near this? I'm going to say they don't, because they still are partners away, you know, with the NFL.
Yeah.
Like you really don't want to, you know, focus in on a storyline like that. In particular, one where we admittedly don't have the details. You're gonna just kind of let everything play out.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know, Chris. I feel like that. Those were the big ones. I mean, if we want to talk Major League Baseball, I know your Mets and the Yankees have both kind of gotten into a little bit of a slump here, a little bit of a swoon.
Well, which team actually is more problematic? The Mets at least have this promise that, all right, they'll get Senga back. You have Manaea that's going to be coming back. You've got some arms on the way. With the Yankees, the bottom half of their lineup sucks. Anthony Volpe is not worthy of starting for that franchise at shortstop.
Yeah, it feels. I feel like this is an evergreen conversation to have every mismanaged. The Yankees just feel mismanaged. You got guys in spots where they shouldn't be, doing things they shouldn't be doing. Defensively, they're a horrible team. The idea that they were in the World Series doesn't absolve them from their sins. They could have just been in the World Series last year during a very down year for the AL, and to see a team like Toronto rise up and claim the AL East. Yeah, the Yankees warts are starting to show.
They have to get aggressive. I'm talking about going out and getting a few new pieces there to work in. And with the Yankees, too, Danger, that they're long in the tooth. Goldschmidt, okay, Stanton's back, but who knows? Like LeMahieu, these are guys that have been around. The young talent didn't take off like you would have hoped by this point.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, I mean, what else did we miss while we were on holiday? I'm trying to think of, I mean, clearly there was a lot that happened, but it's happened now and it's so far in a rearview mirror. Like, doesn't it feel like Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final feels like forever ago? I mean, it just feels like, or it didn't even go Game 7, it go Game 6.
It went 6.
It went 6. Yeah. I don't even, see, I was losing track while I was overseas, but I remember seeing that Florida won, and it feels like forever ago.
What was the biggest story in the NFL? Was it the Steelers-Dolphins trade? Like, you never see, like, veteran for veteran. And, like, all right, you're the Steelers. I just think you're spinning your wheels here.
If you think that the Steelers, again, the theme of this offseason around Pittsburgh, the arrogance of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, you know, Omar Khan is not on the hot seat. He just got extended. Mike Tomlin's not on any hot seat. He's not going anywhere. They are totally fine doing things the way they are doing things. Whether or not it results in them being more than a one-and-done playoff team as they've been so many times that have frustrated their fans remains to be seen. But the idea that Minka Fitzpatrick is going back to Miami, the idea that Jalen Ramsey is coming up to Pittsburgh.
You almost forget Fitzpatrick started in Miami. Like,
right.
That's where...
Right.
Okay.
That was a big deal. Like, that was almost, I would almost have considered that an un-Steeler-like move when they, because I want to say they traded a first-round pick when they got Fitzpatrick. And when that happened, it was like, that's not what the Steelers do. The Steelers never trade draft picks. Like, what? And Fitzpatrick was a nice player for Pittsburgh going back now to Miami. Is that the biggest NFL story right now?
Yeah. And then Dolphins, okay. give Chris Greer credit. Like Jalen Ramsey, they got something. You know, Jonnu Smith, who cares? And okay, Darren Waller come back. I'm not signing
Darren Waller coming back is interesting. Like that felt like a guy who completely, not to steal from Jack Eichel, lost his love of the game. Or no, Ryan O'Reilly. Feels like he completely lost his love of the game. And he's back. Okay. We'll see what he has left in the tank. These are all conversations, by the way. Fantasy relevant conversations. That's where the mind is right now. Yeah, the mind right now is, are you starting to think about your season-long draft? Are you starting to think about draft position? I know Gino is. He pulled the number 1 overall pick in the our humble little Radio Geeks League here at our offices.
Funny thing is, like, I didn't even know that was happening, and I just, like, once a day would check my work email while on holiday, and oh, I got the number 1 overall pick.
That's
all right.
I can attest. I was one of the witnesses there. Me, Pizza Dude, Tim the commish. We met. It was impromptu. He's like, we're doing it today. Like, let's go. And we did it. And when I saw Gino I'm like, oh, boy. We're going to have to deal with insufferable Gino with the number 1 overall pick for the next couple of months. You know, and I don't think there's any.
To be fair, I'm always insufferable. But go ahead.
I don't know that there's any doubt as to what direction you're going to go at 1.1 in a Superflex league.
Superflex leagues are so fun. Every league, you should be in a Superflex league because quarterbacks in fantasy football don't have the weight that they do in real football. This fixes that instantly. If you don't have a quarterback, much less 2 in Superflex, you're toast. So, yeah, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to talk to Josh while we're at camp. I'm going to ask him if he's okay with that.
If you do, you know that you're going to be the jinx. Like everybody's going to say, if it doesn't go well, they're going to blame you. It's going to be your fault if things don't go well.
Honestly, I think probably players and coaches hate when their mentions are about fantasy football.
Question.
Like, I'm doing this for a living.
No
I don't
question.
care.
No question they hate it. There's absolutely no question they hate it. Hell, we asked him about being on the QB show when we talked to him a couple of seasons ago, and he kind of coiled up. He didn't really want to talk about his own personal business. He just wants to talk about football, and not the fantasy kind, the real kind. Well, we're looking forward to it. It's just over a couple of weeks from now. We'll be at St. John Fisher University. It's almost as if the Buffalo Bills listen to the Sports Bar. They know we're going to be there for 9 different shows.
9 times.
And before you ask, and I know you're going to ask, and we love you, don't get us wrong, we don't have tickets to training camp. I know that the tickets are free. I know that they're impossible to get your hands on. I know that it would be a great experience for everybody that wants to go. We don't get tickets to training camp.
We will have tomorrow more Adam Sandler tickets. And if you want Adam Sandler tickets tomorrow and your chance to win, you got to listen in real time, folks. I'm sorry if poor Dan is watching on YouTube. Nope. Sometimes the lag is behind and everything. Like, nope. Like, I'll get calls like, hey, am I calling number? No, actually, you're probably listening on the app, and that
you're a few minutes late. Yeah, you get a little bit of lag if you're not listening in real time. So, yeah, we encourage you to listen on all those platforms, whether you're talking iHeart, Radio, Odyssey, of course, our home online, TuneIn, YouTube. The stream is there for you. If you miss any part of the show you want, you can go back and watch it on YouTube. You can go back and listen to it in the Odyssey app. Plenty of ways. I think we've reached our 9 different platforms.
9 times.
I mean, we're probably over. We've eclipsed 9 different platforms at this point. That was always our goal.
Keep going.
Yeah, we're not going to stop.
I did not run into on my vacation the first couple in New England, by the way. They were in Nantucket, Danger.
They were in Nantucket?
Yeah.
What did I see that she prevented some wrestler from signing with North Carolina? Like, I feel like she just gets inserted into stories at random now. It doesn't even, like, I don't even know where the connection would be, why Jordan Hudson would prevent a college athlete a wrestler from transferring from one school to another.
Yeah, and this is his allegation. And the thing that is great about this is that, well, North Carolina, if you went to Duke, the emails aren't public. All you need is a freedom of information request, and you can put in. And some of these emails that North Carolina is getting, dangerous. Like one donor Oh, what a total embarrassment for USC. I'm withdrawing all my donations and future donations. Yeah, that's there's a lot of people that are pulling money out. I bet it's one and done.
Did you go to her, did you go by her mom's place?
I did not go to Province, to P-Town.
P-Town.
No, did not go to Toys of Arrows. It's a family vacation, Danger, not going there.
Well, maybe the executive producer wanted to, take a...
She's on a family vacation too, Danger.
He's saying for the show, a selfie in front of Toys of Arrows would have been kind of fun. This is where Hudson's mom owns and operates.
All right, I'll make a deal.
Classy establishment.
Selfie in front of Toys of Arrows, assuming Toys of Arrows is still open.
It's still there?
It's still there.
Uh-huh. We know that, right? We fact checked that. Like, she runs that place. She's the manager there.
Yeah, 100%.
Fantastic. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry you didn't run into him, Gino. How much time at the beach? How many days?
7 of 8.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now
On the other one, I went into Chatham. Chatham. Yeah, Chatham walking up and down.
If you can't make it to P-Town, Chatham will do just fine. How bad is that? You're having nothing but Ina Gartens everywhere. Everywhere you look, it's Ina Garten and Martha Stewart. Yes. Meryl Streep's. Chatham. You talking about sports? How uncivilized.
Up in the mountains, how hot did it get there, bud?
You know what? First few days in Madrid, high 80s, not too bad. Not humid. Not too bad. When we got to Italy, man, like walking in an oven. It was 95 to 100 every day, at night, no AC, just sweltering.
So is that a culture thing or an infrastructure thing? The no AC?
No AC because, well, the house that we were staying at, my mother-in-law's childhood home, you're not installing AC in there. It's just an old house. It doesn't have AC. Could you install like an in-room unit? This is what my aunt in Madrid did. She has an AC unit in the kitchen. She has an AC unit in the bedroom. It's not central air.
Yeah.
You could do that, I suppose, but for the amount of time that my in-laws spend, it's probably not worth the investment and the hassle of installing AC. The beach, though, you got 7 out of 8 days at the beach. I got a day at the beach, and it was a glorious day. It was a great day in the Adriatic Sea, but could have taken a few more beach days given the temperatures being as hot as they were.
Adriatic Sea, is it more wavy than Lake Ontario?
It was calm, man.
Yeah.
I think it may be less, honestly.
Really?
I mean, it felt like, I'm not going to say it was glass, but there wasn't any surf to deal with. There was no surf to deal with. It was crystal clear, beautiful. Just I could have taken 2 weeks just at the beach. But I got my day, and I might not be peanut butter, but I've tried to between the 4th of July, getting some yard work done.
Well, you're one of these guys that you're putting on sunscreen, but you don't have to worry. Like, there's some people there that were like, okay.
I know, you're going to burst into flames as soon as you set foot in Cape Cod. Yeah, just turn into dust. You're going to blip like an Avenger. Meanwhile, I'm just going to roast. Good time for both of us. Good to be back. Glad you're with us. And, wow, over the next couple of weeks here, we'll do everything we can to get you ready for Bills training camp. We'll continue to follow along what's going on with the Sabres. Got some good insight today from Joe Yurden, from Steve Kornianos. Lots has happened with the Sabres, the Amherst. And as we were talking about at the beginning, I think the biggest thing that happened while we were gone from a local standpoint is the idea that we don't know what the future of the Rochester Nighthawks is, folks.
Oh, we don't, but anybody that can make logical deductions can figure out that, hey, if the Pagulas want to sell the team, that's fine. Who's the new owner? Oh, you just handed the keys back to the car right to the leagues? I know we're not dealing with. Really? That's how that works? You're kidding me. So you're saying there's no value. Zero. None. Squadoosh. This league is messed up, Danger, if there's going to be another team that folds. So either the team is folding or the Pagulas, hey, we're not the ones who moved it. It was the league. The league couldn't find anybody in Rochester. You could have kept that team had somebody stepped up.
I think it's also fascinating if you play the game of media and messaging that shortly after that Nighthawks message went out, wasn't there another message about the Bills partnering with Fisher on a longer-term deal?
So the Bills, all of a sudden, I'm not saying this disparagingly. Sal Maduran is a great reporter, but, he's got the story, and it has nothing to do with the Nighthawks, that the Bills and the and Fisher are talking about a 5-year extension, which, hey, that would be great, right? We go year by year by year. And maybe it's one of those things where the Bills are like, hey, we would like a few things, and maybe it's a negotiation. But that is the classic, no, don't talk about this. Let's pivot over to this. Look at what we bring to your community, the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Nighthawks, please.
Great manipulation in the media by the Bills. I mean, they're just PR wizards.
Look, anything that's going to bring an average of 5,500 people downtown on a Saturday night to that arena, where jobs are created. I'm just looking at it from that standpoint, Danger. Lacrosse doesn't have to be your thing, but obviously it's a league where teams don't make money. I was just on the outskirts of Boston. You know what they don't have? They don't have indoor lacrosse. You know who's also rumored to be in trouble? Philadelphia. That's a major market. How's that even possible? That's a league right now in a sport that it's in a little bit of – Buffalo is the exception.
I can tell you that the arena is the challenges of hosting at the arena are real. Like it's an expense just to turn the lights on, and
having put on concerts.
Yes, having just my personal history, having done PXY Jingle Jam, they're like great venue, awesome partners, a jewel for our community. Love the Blue Cross Arena, but it doesn't mean that it's easy to do business there and be profitable. It's hard. It's really, really challenging. You have to really fill that thing to turn a profit. And I think it's telling that the Pagulas didn't try to sell the team. They just gave it to the league almost as if to say, your problem now, figure out what to do with it. We're not going to look to make a profit or return on our investment.
This is a team, though, that made the playoffs each of the last 2 years and has the reigning league MVP.
Yeah. And if that reigning league MVP ends up in Buffalo, oh, man. I don't like talking about it. I don't like thinking about it. But that was always a weird dynamic, though. But one owner, two teams, they're throughaway rivals. That was always a little bit weird. Well, it's not weird anymore because the Nighthawks are now in possession of the league, and their future is very much in jeopardy.
Oh, yeah, Peter writing in, too. Yes, what else happened while we're gone, as it does every year, where I turn off my phone, but I have to put my head above water every once in a while, right? Let me see what's going on. Oh, yeah, it's July 1st. Send in the memes of Bobby Bonilla collecting his money.
I refrained this year. I didn't reach out to you, but I am on a chain of New York sports fans, a text thread with some friends who were in the city, and there's a pretty even split of Yankee fans and Met fans in this group, and I wish them all a happy New Year with my favorite Mets picture. You know, the cartoon, the illustration of the dorky Mets fan with the foam finger. Happy New Year, everybody. Let's see if your Mets can turn things around, if the Yankees can turn things around here. A lot of baseball left to be played, but and the All-Star break coming up, the All-Star game coming up. Let's get to a round of shots.
Yeah, we got a lot of baseball coming up here. We'll give a minute here to the Blue Jays. How about the Blue Jays here? That's kind of something here. Something that you know how Rob Manfred, when ESPN opted out, one of his airing agreements is when Major League Baseball opted out of their deal with ESPN, how that fell apart. Hey, ESPN doesn't give us coverage anyways. You would never believe what preempted Major League Baseball's All-Star Selection show last night. You didn't see this, did you?
You know, it's funny. I was waiting to watch the Cubs. I know they were in a rain delay, so I didn't start watching until around 6:30-ish.
Yeah, okay. By that point, they got to it.
Okay.
We'll explain. Oh, and by the way, the Knicks have a coach.
Ah. A round of shots coming up. Don't forget about last call. You can have the final word in the sports bar this afternoon when you join us at 866-4326. 585-866-4FAN.
Sports Update.
As they typically are, Wings are not playing on a Monday night. Worcester's coming in tomorrow. There was some speculation that Matt Leacroy, the Wings manager, would get the call up to the big leagues. That didn't happen. Miguel Cairo today named the new interim manager of the Nationals. Cairo taking over for Dave Martinez, who was fired along with GM Mike Rizzo on Sunday. Meanwhile, Sabres development camp wrapping up. Amerks head coach Mike Leone feeling good about what's
I thought we'd get a lot of guys back. I mean, it really speaks to Rochester and the organization of guys really wanted to be here. And anytime, you get 5 out of 60 back in the American League Hockey organization is incredible. And all the signings, I think we got 15 out of our 21 everyday guys back.
Sports brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Get 2 for 1 rounds of golf to Wildwood Country Club. Gene Battaglia, the Fan, Rochester.
Rochester's home for live sports and the best sports talk anywhere. The Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Happy Hour continues on The Fan. You're in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia. Thanks for checking us out. We appreciate you making us part of your routine, even if it's just for a few minutes on your ride home. Every afternoon at this time, we serve up a round of shots.
Seemed a little overdue, did it not, what the Nationals did yesterday? They won the World Series in 2019. It was 6 years ago. Since the World Series win, Danger, they haven't finished above 4th in the division. The move happened after the Nationals were swept by Boston, as we mentioned. The update, Mike Rizzo with the GM out.
Mike Rizzo! Yeah, Mike Rizzo. You know me. Mike Rizzo. I got all my tools. I come over there. I'm the best. Mike Rizzo.
I think that's Frank Rizzo.
My brother's Frank. I'm Mike. I'm Mike Rizzo. I got a great bunch of tools. I'll come over there. I'll straighten everything out.
Maybe they needed to hire Mike Rizzo instead, or Frank Rizzo instead of Mike.
Yeah,
Rizzo.
Sizzle Chest. They needed to hire me. I would have been over there. I would have had everybody in tip top and no problem. I'm the best. I'm the best. Frank Rizzo, jackass.
Who is the hottest team in baseball? The answer is the Toronto Blue Jays. After sweeping the Yankees, the Jays ended up sweeping the Angels. It's the first time the Jays have ever swept a homestand of 7 games. And they've been in existence since 1977. Winners of 8 in a row. Toronto beginning today, 3 games up on the Yankees and the Rays, tied for second. And now the Jays head on the road to face the always hospitable Chicago White Sox.
Yeah, feels like a streak for sure. What did I see? There's a couple things I saw about these. First of all, that was the first 4-game sweep at home that they've ever had of the Yankees, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And also, this is the latest in the season that they've been in first place, dating back to 2016.
This is the surprise of baseball. I didn't really think this team would be that good. By the way, I mentioned the Chicago White Sox. Where are you with the Bear?
I'm not there yet.
What?
I know. Dude, I know. My daughter was all geeked up. She's like, we're going to watch it on the plane ride home. I'm like, you can watch it on the plane ride home. I have other plans. She didn't watch it. I didn't watch it. Like I said, I read 4 books. I don't know if I said, I know you're surprised. I hope you're sitting down. You think I don't read? I read 4 books. 4 books while I was gone for a couple of weeks.
I feel like I have to give you a quiz. You don't read a book. 4 books.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah. I gave myself an assignment. I read 4 books while I was gone. To answer your question about the Bear, where am I? I need to watch it. However, and this is the power of influence. I haven't seen great reviews. And because I haven't seen great reviews, the reviews I've seen have been moderate to poor. And I know I'm going to make up my own mind on a show that I love, and I'll watch it myself. But it is forced it to the back burner. It has forced it to not be a priority. Who knows? Maybe I'll crank out a couple episodes tonight.
What is the name of the actress? Actually, Sydney Adamu is actually the. That's the character's name.
Sydney, yeah.
Yeah, Sydney. She's the actress that plays her. She's gonna win. She's gonna win an Emmy.
Oh,
I can't tell you anything more than that.
Yeah, there's a friend who said, text me when you get to the part that made me cry. I'm like, oh, there was a part that made you cry. They're like, yeah, text me when you get to that part. I'm like, okay, deal. I'll get to it. It's on the list, but it's high priority on the list.
Last night, Major League Baseball held a show to announce their all-star selections. Now, all-star selections, if you say it's a Francesa, I hear you.
Oh, who cares?
Well, you're not the only ones. Fans who tune into ESPN at 5 o'clock expected to say, hey, did my favorite player make the All-Star team? Instead, got to see cornhole. The cornhole match was running over time. They didn't preempt it.
Explain this to me, though. I thought they announced, or I thought the All-Star selections were announced earlier in the week.
For the starters.
Oh, for the starters. This is a
so,
special just for the starters?
No, the starters were already announced by the vote.
This is everybody else.
This is everybody else. Who made it, who didn't.
So the slappies. The slappies of the All-Star game. The guys that'll come in for an inning.
Pitchers are like, no, it's like.
Everybody's going to gravitate towards the biggest names, the starters. We knew who they were, and now it's a special just for the other guys.
Yeah, and then we get to debate who didn't make it. And honestly, I don't care that Juan Soto didn't make it. I don't care that Mookie Betts didn't make it. Like they probably enjoy like having a long week.
Sure. I would love for the All-Star game to be what it once was. It was the Midsummer Classic, and it was marked time, and
it reminds us what was good can be good again, or however that
right.
goes.
I mean, America has been rolled by like an army of steamrollers. Gene, it's been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again. But baseball has marked the time.
Can you read that like Mike Rizzo, brother of Frank Rizzo, would read?
Yeah, I can read it, sizzle chest. America is rolled by like an army of steamrollers. They just ran right over you. And it's been erased like a blackboard. I remember getting my hand slapped by Sister Mary Catherine in 3rd grade. Then they rebuilt it. They erased it again. Jackass. Baseball has marked the time. I'm good. I'm great. I'm the best. Mike Rizzo, looking for work.
Did Mike Rizzo grow up a Yankee fan or a Met fan?
No, I'm a Yankee fan. I'm a bleacher creature. I'm the best. I'm the best there is. I'm the best out there. I lead the chants. I'm the guy that leads all the chants. That's me. Mike Rizzo, jackass. Remember my name. I'm the best.
It's going to be Mike Brown as the new head coach of the New York Knicks. Brown has been in the league a long time, having been in Cleveland for LeBron's first stint there. He was also during the Lakers' forgettable Steve Nash, Dwight Howard years. Brown is a 2-time coach of the year, though, last time being with the Kings. Remember the Light the Beam? That came and went really quick. In 2024, he was fired this past winter. Brown will reportedly pull in $40 million. The Knicks are still on the hook for $30 million to Tom Thibodeau.
I just think that this hire is all the evidence you need. Really, all the evidence you need that they didn't have a plan. They're going to fire Thibodeau with no plan. Who are we bringing in? We're going to bring in Mike Brown. Now, you could sell me on the idea that they do have a plan in hiring Mike Brown if that plan includes somehow getting LeBron James to New York City. You brought him up. His first year, his first stint.
No.
There's a relationship there.
No, I'm not co-signing for that.
I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it could happen. There are dots that could be connected there. I wouldn't if I was a Knicks fan, I wouldn't be excited about it.
No.
But it could happen. Crazier things have happened.
All LeBron would have to do is say, because since he's the real GM of the Lakers, like, stop. He's got a little Aaron Rodgers in him. Like, I shouldn't be reading LeBron rumors, right? You're getting paid what you're getting paid. Well, but we don't appreciate him as we should.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
Right. Knicks fans, how do you feel about that? Mike Brown. Is that an upgrade from Tibbs? I don't know that it is.
I don't know what it is, but look at the Eastern Conference next year. Now that Halliburton's out for the year, and then you have the Celtics.
So
by
open.
The way, they're
open.
You could have Detroit.
Yeah.
Orlando.
It's pretty open. Orlando is interesting. You're right. It's wide open. I guess in that regard, look, if it's a lateral move from Tibbs to Brown, being how wide open it is, if you can just get a little bit more out of your bench, if Brown can, that was the knock on Tibbs, right?
Yeah.
He didn't tap into his bench, ran his guys into the ground. We'll see how Brown manages through it, but the East is open. Why not?
2 youth baseball coaches have been fired this after a tournament game at the Field of Dreams complex in Cooperstown. Who, by the way, I've heard it's really nice down there. That's the place you go to. 2 men filmed streaking on the base paths at 1 a.m. These are the coaches in front of their team. These are 12-year-olds. Authorities were called, but by the time they arrived, the 2 men and the team were gone, headed back to Illinois. Charges won't be pressed in New York State. However, authorities in Lake Bluff, Illinois, suburb of Chicago, are investigating the matter.
Come on. Who amongst us hasn't, right? I mean, you're traveling for your kids' sports tournament, whether it's baseball or soccer or hockey. You got a couple pops, and you just say, you know what? Let's get freaky. Let's get wild. Oh, by the way, I'm the coach. Yeah, I'm going to go streaking. Let's do it. Who amongst us has? No?
No.
Nobody?
I don't think. Hopefully that wasn't kids if we come back. Coach and I, we're going to streak.
1 a.m. 1 a.m. How hammered were these coaches?
No, that's how these tournaments go in baseball, Danger. Like especially if you have weather, they got to get the games in.
Yeah.
Like first pitch at 10 o'clock at night. That's healthy for a 12-year-old. Why? What part of this would make you think this is a good idea?
Yeah. That's who's coaching that team. The guy that goes streaking in front of the team. Awesome. That's shots. Got to come back with last call. You can have the final word in the sports bar at 866-4326. 585-866-4FAN, and we'll let you know who's stopping by tomorrow as well. Next on The Fan. Feels good to be back, just like riding a bicycle here in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia. Thanks for joining us this afternoon on the Fan Rochester. You can catch up with us anywhere you get your shows. If you are a podcaster, like your podcast, find the Sports Bar, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. You'll get our conversations with Steve Cornianos, the draft analyst, Joe Yurden, Bleacher Report, Noted Hockey. We talk some Buffalo Sabres. We talk some NHL draft this afternoon. Get those conversations wherever you get your pod. And if you missed any part of the show in the Odyssey app, you can go back and listen with Rewind. You can also check out our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester and go back and watch any part of the show you may have missed.
So when Pete Alonso was first getting in the home run derby, he wasn't making a lot of money. And actually at one point, like the money you won from home run derby surpassed his actual salary. That's no longer the case. I'm bringing this up. Pete Alonso declining to go into the home run derby this year. So
he's Mr. Home Run Derby.
Yeah, so no Pete Alonso means that we only have 3. So the game is in Atlanta coming up next week, which is actually 1 week from tonight. Ronald Acuna is going to represent the Braves. You've got Cal Riley, who is just a stud. He's the MVP of the American League, the Seattle catcher. And James Wood, former Sports Bar guest, will be in the home run derby, but still 5 slots to remain. I don't see them pulling in a Judge or an Ohtani or anybody like that.
I mean, even the home run derby now for the All-Star break is like that was like for a few years there, that was must see. You have to see the home run derby. It eclipsed the popularity. I think it still has eclipsed the popularity of the game.
Yeah, brings in a better TV number.
I just don't think when you have so many players opting out, it's a stench. It doesn't. Like, I want the player who says, yeah, I want to be in the home run derby.
Well, that was always Alonso.
Yeah.
That was always him, and maybe his body's telling him, okay, I could, because he's not going to play in the All-Star game. He wasn't invited to that, so maybe just use $54 million, by the way, he's pulling down.
Wood is the guy we're rooting for, right?
Yeah, of course.
We're rooting for Wood in the home run derby to see one of our guys, see a Red Wing as recently as last year go up and mash a little bit. That'll be fun. We'll check that out. Tomorrow on the show, oh, man. One of our favorites, former Baltimore Raven, Adam Terry, joins us in the Sports Bar.
So he's working girls flag football. We'll talk about that. But if you're an NFL athlete, are you just dreading this time of year? Like, I'm enjoying, like, what was that
like? Are you dreading or enjoying this time of year?
I would think you're dreading oh my gosh, it's coming to an end.
Oh,
big mountain.
Yeah.
Or are you enjoying? I don't know how you would look at it.
Or if you're a creature of habit and routine, and you get into a habit and routine throughout the course of a long NFL season, this is the kind of thing that knocks you off a peg. I don't know. We'll talk to Adam Terry about how he used to deal with this time of year and see what's new in his world. Love our buddy Adam Terry, Rochesterian, joining us here in the Sports Bar to talk a little NFL. Tomorrow, 4:25. Have a great night. JR Sport Brief is next on the Fan Rochester.